it isn't about installing your friends into political office. Voters can see through that, and what voters are going to resonate with in this election is going to be the message. And our message is fundamentally different than everyone else's message.
All right, Maurice, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to dive into a lot of topics and things that we want to talk to you and discuss with you about North Omaha and your run for city council. But I did have this icebreaker question to begin with that I'm really excited about.
All right.
If you could teleport back to any point in Omaha's history for just one day, whether it's to see the jazz scene on 24th Street in its prime or experience another iconic moment, where would you go and why?
That's a really good question. There's so many things that I probably would teleport back to, but 24th Street. I've looked at photos of 24th Street when it was in its prime, and the beauty of a community, the beauty of unity, and just seeing African Americans doing in terms of economic sense far better than where we're at now as a community. Mm-hmm. And I would love to transport back to that time of like going up and down 24th Street, seeing the bustling businesses, seeing the the strong jazz scene, with Preston Love's father, all that. That is a time I would love to go back to and just experience it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself then. Give us a brief bio.
Sure. Lived my entire life in District 2. Mm-hmm. Went to Catholic schools early on. I was at St. Richard's. And St. Richard's closed down. Archdiocese made that decision. I don't know for what particular reason. But then I moved on to Holy Name. And after Holy Name, I went to a school in South Omaha, St. Peter and Paul. That was my elementary experience. And then at some point, I transitioned to Morton Middle School. But my whole life and my education background has been here in Omaha. I was raised by, for the most part, my mom. My mom and my grandmother, Phyllis and Renee. Three women raised me, and because my dad wasn't in my life for quite some time, but being raised by three women taught me some fundamental values of working hard, because I seen it. Treating others like how you be treated, the golden rule, mm-hmm. and paying it forward, serving others. Those are the values I learned, and it has influenced who I am today.
But, I feel that. Yeah, I was raised by a single mother.
Same.
In sort of a matriarch situation.
Yes.
And my mother was Hispanic, right? And not only did she have to deal
Hispanic.
Not only did she have to deal with discrimination as a woman, but she also had to deal with discrimination as a Hispanic woman. So, I mean, I definitely know that women like that have to work a lot harder. So.
Yeah, my mom was a housekeeper for a long time. She's hearing impaired. She can hear, and I can't imagine being a single mom, deaf, raising three kids, and there's some days I just want to be like, I just want to go into a hole and never come back out of it, but it's because of strong examples that I had that keep me going. Because my mom, I tell you, my grandma was a hair salon, owned a hair salon for 20 years, named Renee's Magic Comb in Benson, and she worked 7 days a week. From the time that shop opened until it closed for 20 years. So I had good examples of hard work.
Wow.
And so that's really that's a little bit about me. I had an opportunity in high school in 2015 to go along the South and learn about the 1960s. I learned about universal suffrage. I learned about how young people during the Children's Crusade, in place of their parents, protested the Jim Crow South, and they were confronted with attack dogs and water cannons, and Bull Connor, the public safety commissioner, and Governor Wallace. And I learned about 16th Street Baptist Church and how acts of terrorism claimed the life of, 3 African-American schoolgirls who were there for Sunday service. And I learned about Edmund Pettus Bridge, and I witnessed Obama speak for the first time, a guy that I admired since I was since '08 when he was elected. And I witnessed him speak in front of the Edmund Pettus Bridge, a bridge named after a high-profile Ku Klux Klan member, I think the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan, and to see Obama speak in front of that bridge.
Amazing.
Just totally changed who I was as a person. And I tell you that story because it's a part of who I am, because I'm only 26 now. But, that really has led me on this path.
Yeah, that kind of bleeds into the first question we had on why you decided to run. And it sounds like that trip had a profound impact on you. But you had a little bit of, after you came back from that trip, what happened next?
Well, I was out of the state for about a week, and it was my first time ever getting out of Omaha because I was really poor, and traveling wasn't a part of our reality. And so when I went on this trip and I learned those important sacrifices that were made, how King died for universal citizenship, and how people lost their life just so that I can walk into a voting booth and cast a vote. And I came back to Omaha and I realized that voter turnout was so low, and it broke my heart. Quite literally, it broke my heart, because I was just like, I just went on this trip and look at the turnout that we have in North Omaha. And I ran for city council as a high school student and didn't know what the hell I was doing, but
if I remember correctly, before the Civil Rights Act passed, I think that contained the Voter Rights Act, they had like literacy tests and poll taxes, that sort of thing.
Yeah, folks who wanted the right to vote were confronted with all sorts of challenges. Certainly one was the, being lynched. I mean, there are countless black folks lynched just because of that. But not only that, you're right, they were confronted with poll tests, all sorts of ridiculous sorts of tests that would deprive one of their right. How many peanuts are in the jar? Can you name every senator in the state, including their entire family? These are some of the some of the challenges that people were confronted with, and it made me gain a new appreciation for civics and what it means to be.
Yeah, you mentioned Bull Connor, if I remember that.
The public safety commissioner.
Yeah, and reading about the civil rights movement, it's just, how can you not be incredibly inspired?
Yeah.
And I'm actually just reading, Why We Can't Wait by Martin Luther King right now, and he talked about like the strategies they had to employ, the tactics they had to employ. They were going to do a big demonstration near the election, and they decided, even though all this preparation had happened, to like postpone it, to not give him fuel for the fire.
Sure.
It's amazing how intelligent that movement was.
Yeah.
How intelligent it was. It's just all inspiring.
Yeah, that's the impact they had on me. And I'm not the same person. Although, in this very moment, 8 years later, since I first ran, I have a better understanding. I have some life experience. I've missed a bill or two. I've had some debt collectors call my phone. I've had my heart broken. Life has happened to me in the 8 years since I ran, and I pay taxes.
It's wild.
I own a house now.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's just so I understand.
8 years is not a long time, but a lot of things can happen.
Yes.
And so much.
I mean, I was 18 and now I'm 26.
Yeah.
So 8 years doesn't seem much, but it seems
like in that moment, in like that period of life, a lot like happens in that time. Yeah.
So 30% of your life is 8 years so far.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Why would you have to say it like that?
Because it's a lot. It's a lot. 8 years is a lot when
goes
you're young.
by.
Yeah,
Goes by.
you 30% of your life.
So, well, of his life so far.
It is. It's
So
true.
what was your run like in 2017, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my run in I believe 20. I can't believe
It all blurs together,
Yeah, it
yeah.
blurs together, but it was not like it is now. It's just a completely different energy. Then it was, I had ideas, but I didn't really know how to talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
I also, I think so much of our ideas come from our lived experiences too. So who I am now is a completely different person, but I spent a lot of time around party politics when I first ran. I became the vice chair of the Nebraska Democratic Party Black Caucus, and then became chairman while I was in high school because of a very controversial, statement that was made by Chelsea, our chair, Chelsea Gentry Tipton, and it put me in the spotlight. After a number of congressmen were shot at a congressional baseball game, and it pissed off a lot of people. So, I was involved in a lot of party, Democratic Party stuff. I showed up to all of the meetings. This was while I was running. So when I talked to you earlier about, my relationship with the Democrats, it's not that I have a bad one. It's just that we don't win elections by hanging out with a bunch of our friends. We have to go out and we have to talk to the people in the community. Proximity is important. You can have all your, because the danger of hanging out with all your Democratic friends is that you feel like you have all the support in the world and that you're just going to win this. It doesn't matter how influential they are in the party. They're not going to win an election. It's about getting out there and knocking the doors and proximity. So that's the difference.
Yeah. So, what was your main, I guess you answered the question. I don't need to go back to it. Your main takeaway, which, we don't win elections by hanging out with our friends, but yeah.
I guess the main takeaway for me in my city council race the first time was that it can get really ugly, really quick. And you can create a lot of enemies. Mm-hmm. And, if people don't know who you are or know what your intentions are, they can be especially, inconsiderate or, mean or whatnot. But, somehow I stuck through it. I had tough skin as a high school student.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember all those moments of, so.
Yeah, the frustrating thing about politics is, I've known a lot of otherwise good people. As soon as they come to the realm of politics, they lose their minds.
Yeah.
And it's just dignity goes out the window, respect goes out the window, and it's really hard to endure that for a long amount of time. But
yeah, well, for me, that's what's so special about my story is that my inspiration comes from a trip I took in high school that fundamentally, changed who I was as a person. It seems like everybody else in this race, the message is about them. It's about them. It's about their ego. It's about their personal accomplishments. And for me, it's not about any of that. It's about the community. It's about the families in District 2. It's not about using this as a stepping stone to some other political office like state legislature or, Congress or from the school boards that way.
All right. So I do want to talk a little bit about infrastructure and development because, you work in real estate and you've seen kind of just the overall infrastructure of just North Omaha and how it's historically been. District 2 has suffered from decades of disinvestment and just poor planning, city planning.
Sure.
So the North Freeway that was constructed in the 1960s had split Omaha and displaced families and disrupted a thriving community. How do you propose fostering connectivity for infrastructure development in North Omaha in this role? What could you see bringing to city council, how it would improve the overall infrastructure of North Omaha?
Sure. The first thing you said, these intentional acts, and you're right. The interstate, propped up everywhere. It goes not just through North Omaha, but it also goes, I-680, I-80. But it especially impacted North Omaha in a way that it did not other communities. A lot of those homes along the interstate, Highway 75, going north and south, were homes owned by a lot of minorities. And home ownership is critical. And you're right. Disinvestment happened during the 1960s. With redlining and blockbusting. The deliberate disinvestment of our communities. Federal Housing Authority had all sorts of policies, racial covenant laws that written into the deeds that said if you can't sell this house to a black person or a black family. It's horrific, and this is very people that advocated for those policies, even if at the end of their life they're still alive. To put it in context, my grandpa, who was born in 1929 in the Deep South, is still alive today. And, so we know that the people responsible for these laws are still alive, and the people that benefited from these sorts of racist policies are still alive. Mm-hmm. Many of them live in the suburbs because, we used to have white developers come in North Omaha back in the 60s and knock on white people's door and say, well, there's black folks that just moved up the street. We built these really nice subdivisions, these suburbs out west. Come move in ours, and you don't have to worry about a black guy again. And they did, overwhelmingly.
White flight.
Yeah. White people moved out, and even what's more troubling is that this was sanctioned by the federal government. I mean, it's unbelievable to me. But let's go back. Let's backtrack. Let's talk about, in terms of access. 16th Street was once a direct route to downtown Omaha from North Omaha, but city leaders and a big developer decided to build the DoubleTree Hotel, which choked off an important artery to downtown Omaha from North Omaha. I don't want to, there has been conversations about tearing that hotel down well before I was even alive. And I think we should revisit that conversation because it was an important artery access point to downtown Omaha. And it was deliberate because they didn't want that community, coming down North Omaha unless you get on the interstate. These are really big challenges. And how do we, and as a one person on the city council, it's going to be so important that we talk to our fellow council members about how we approach this. Because to be honest, I haven't thought too much about how we undo those two specific, problems, the interstate and then the DoubleTree Hotel. Those are the most glaring. But it starts with leadership. If we don't have a seat at the table, which we don't with our current council member, we, as a community, are on the menu. We're on the menu, period. The community doesn't vote like it should. As I shared with you, 20% is good, but we barely get to that. So how do you navigate a world where a community doesn't vote? Because if they did vote, they could totally dominate who becomes the next mayor. They could have decided who, if Dan Osborne was elected, he lost by around 30-some thousand votes. We could have had determined that. So if we voted like we should, we know that we'll get the attention that we need. Yeah. Mayor Stothert would have to come to North Omaha because if she doesn't invest and make her policy priorities about North Omaha as well, then she would lose her election. But that's not our reality. So how do you navigate that? The way you navigate that, like I said, is with strong leadership, and we need to have a seat at the table. Leadership that's built on respect, not leadership that's built based on whether or not you're my friend or my enemy, not leadership that's built on whether or not I like you as a person, not leadership that votes based on their emotions or whether or not you, if you'll kiss my ring finger or not. That's not what I'm about. And that's the only way we can move forward is with strong, respected leadership, because you got to convince all those other council members to get on board. And right now, there's people in our community that have to go to other council members that represent other parts of the city to get things done, because our current council member is, nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
Totally absent.
So just to go back to something you mentioned, when this hotel was built, I think the interesting thing about history is that's actually quite common. Yeah. Even though communities had to deal with segregation in the South, there used to be very thriving Black communities economically, and it was actually a pretty common ploy to build a bypass and basically cut them off economically. So is your district still dealing with being choked economically because of certain bypasses?
Well, I think, the district, the people in that community need to look inward and look at each other rather than relying on the outside for economic, investment. Because right now, even if we did open tear out the interstate and build houses there and tear down the hotel, that's not going to fix the problem. Because we have a community of people. It's all about it's about providing a service or product. And many of the businesses there, there's not a lot of businesses that provide us. There's a barber shop, there's restaurants, there's a lot of businesses, but the sort of businesses that would attract the people that we want to attract. I mean, first off, we need to attract the people in our community, and that's not happening. Mm-hmm. So it's no way in the world we're going to be able to attract people on the outside if we don't have the infrastructure for businesses to provide a service or a good. But yes, the interstate as is gets the people from downtown out west. So yeah. And if they're coming through Highway 75, they're getting off, on 30th and going west, or they're getting off on, or they're going the opposite way. Yeah. And going to ILQ, I-680. I mean I-80 or I-680, which goes north. And
a lot of interstates there.
Yeah.
So you said there used to be a main artery from North Omaha to downtown.
Yes.
Does anybody in your family, have they ever talked about how that just changed and how it impacted them?
Not from my family personally. My family, my grandma, for instance, she comes from Canada. She came here in the 1950s. She met my grandfather, who was stationed, who eventually became stationed at Offutt, but he was from Lake City, Florida. And so, they weren't directly impacted. And then my mom's side of the family, we're all from this, deep South Mississippi, Lacazziesco, Mississippi. And they moved here for the packing plant, so as did many African Americans. So around that time, it really, it wasn't impacting. But for the folks that lived here generations before, who literally had their homes taken away from them, by eminent domain to build this interstate, it did affect Black families, a lot of Black families who owned homes directly, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to just have that conversation, and if a city councilor is having that conversation, even more important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talking about attracting people with different products or goods, services, things like that, things that attract people to North Omaha. One thing that I've been particularly interested in are food deserts and how North Omaha has been affected by that, because you have closures of stores like Safeway in the 1980s and people having to go outside of North Omaha, outside of their community to get, food, right? Basic groceries.
Sure.
Has that been something you've been interested in and seeing how, that can come back? I know that, Senators Wayne and McKinney worked on the North Omaha Recovery Action Plan, and they talked about food deserts a little bit. They talked about things that are not readily available. Sure. Like you said, there's barbershops, there's some restaurants, but, a neighborhood grocery store is not something that is there. So I guess what's your take or thoughts on that?
Well, I know this is that's just one part of the, this is symptoms of this bigger problem that we're facing as a community. Sure. And, after learning about Divisible and learning about how, families are locked out of the opportunity to have that pass down of wealth through home ownership, and locked out of educational opportunities, the whole gamut, it's the legacy of all that. And, the way I believe, I'm the only small business owner in this race, and we need someone with that perspective in City Hall, because a lot of these problems will go away if we invest in entrepreneurship, if we make it a priority of ours. Nonprofits are great; they play their part, but it's unacceptable that there's more more nonprofits than there are for-profits in North Omaha. When we support our businesses and create and support businesses that are from that community, those businesses create the opportunities that we need in our communities. Food deserts. I've lived in North Omaha all my life. There's Baker's on North 30th Street. There's Walmart on Ames. There is we need more. We need more, absolutely. But I think more than that, we need to, create economic base for people in that community that allows them to go on a path of self-sufficiency and, control their reins. And I have some policy ideas for that. Food deserts are important, but I don't want the focus to be like, okay, we need to bring this food vendor, a company here to provide this. Walmart was instrumental in that. But, how do we do it? The best way we can do it is by sitting down with their management team and saying, hey, can we work something out? That's the really only way we approach it. In terms of city government, unless the city is going to, appropriate some money to build a city-sponsored grocery store. The only way to bring that sort of, investment is by sitting down with their, because right now they're looking at North Omaha and they're saying, well, we'll just go somewhere else because North Omaha, it might not be profitable. That's the attitude.
Yeah.
That these companies have, is like, North Omaha is not a good place for us to go because the
Sounds
risk
like
outweigh the reward.
Yeah,
that is the mentality.
Advocating for stuff like that in North Omaha, or having this conversation with these people, which, like you said, sounds like it's not happening.
Yeah.
Tommy.
That's important, but it's much. Walmart did a really good job. That was critical to getting a Walmart there, but there are so many other things that I want to focus on, and food access is critical. But building a grocery store isn't going to bring food access if the people don't have the money to buy the food. That's just, there's been times in my life recently where, I've made decent money where I'm like, sorry, the grocery list is going to have to be chopped a little bit because inflation. So we build a grocery store, inflation's still there. Yeah. So we need to create wealth for people so that they don't have to have that conversation like, I can't afford this, I can't afford that.
Yeah. I've had mixed feelings about our own city council here in Lincoln. I've seen some city councilors, for something like public transit, for instance, just say, "Oh, buses are useless. We're not going to make them any better," or anything like that. Do you have any ideas on public transit?
I fundamentally agree with that. Buses are very, very important. Any mode of transportation that we can invest in is important because, there is a stigma. People who ride, there is a stigma. I've heard people say, "Well, he's riding the bus, he's broke." We do have to overcome that stigma. That's a very strong stigma in the community of if you take public transit, you're broke or you're less than. That's not true. And big metropolitan cities like Chicago, they have a robust transportation system that you can count on. And Omaha seems like in our transportation investment history, we've not made the investment in the communities that need it. We cater to Berkshire Hathaway. We cater to the College World Series. We cater to the swim trials. We cater to everyone else who is not from this town, and we have to be more intentional about developing better transportation options for this community. And that's one thing that that is a priority of mine. And in fact, in the first year, we have an ordinance that's ready to go that we can introduce, and it will be specific, it will be targeted, because that's important to undo a lot of the damage that was done with redlining, all that. We have to make it targeted investments. So here's the plan. We're going to bring unions together, all the trades together, we're going to bring the city of Omaha to the table, and we're going to bring Metro Transit to the table. Because all of these bodies have their own governing elected body now. Metro, Clarice Dombeck just won a seat.
Yeah.
So with all these different entities having their own governing bodies that have their own ideas and our priorities, we need to make sure that they're all together through a, some sort of, agreement or interlocal agreement, they call it, where we bring them all together so that we all prioritize a better, better public transit, but also making sure that, so let me rewind. We have a population of people in North Omaha that need the jobs. And we have a workforce, the trades that need we have an industry, the trades that need the workforce. But the reality in North Omaha is that many of our transportation system is not good enough or reliable enough to get those people to those jobs, which often exist out west. Those trade facilities where you learn and do your apprenticeship, they exist out west. So that's why we need to have Metro Transit, City of Omaha, and Omaha Public Schools together, because there's a specific kind of math that you need to be able to be accepted into these apprenticeship programs. Graduation rates are on the rise in Omaha Public Schools, but we need to make sure that it's just not quality, and we need to make sure it's quantity. That it's quality, not just quantity.
Yeah,
that's critical. Graduation rates are great, but if they can't do their basic math to get into those programs, then it wasn't worth our time.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is develop a specific routes around District 2 in areas that are designated as blighted or opportunity zones. And we're going to develop specific routes, shuttles that go off the main route, and we'll be able to pick up people and take them to those union jobs, because 20 minutes on a corner in the dead of winter can be the difference between whether or not that person who wants that trade goes back inside and lays down because they don't want to stand in the cold because they're freezing their ass off because the bus comes every 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's our problem here in Lincoln, is our routes don't make any sense. If you want to go from one part of the city to another, you always have to take a route downtown first, and then up somewhere else. And it's just, if it takes forever to get somewhere, people are just not going to invest in it. But, if you increase the quality, you increase ridership, get even more money. So
well, that's what's nice about this plan is it's going to be routes where we have some of the lowest medium household income is going to be routes where we have people that need the jobs. And so the schedule we build with the trades so that these routes can be it's timely. That's why these pieces have to all come together that way. And there's something tangible. Metro has capacity. They have shuttle vans. They have even single like a car. They have sedans even.
Yeah.
If they don't have capacity in terms of the drivers, then guess what? We created more jobs. That's the worst that can come of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to work at Best Buy, and this was before I was able to get a car. And from my home to Best Buy was a 10-minute drive, like straight shot down like 70th Street. Things changed. I had to ride the bus. It took me 2 hours to get from my home to work. Worked for 4 hours, another 2-hour ride.
Yeah, who wants to do that? That's 4 hours out of your precious day. Life is too short to be wasting 4 hours on a bus.
Yeah.
Those routes.
You remember that? Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Those routes have to be rethought. Yeah. I've never seen what Omaha's public their transportation lines look like. Isn't there a big spat over like a streetcar program?
There is a spat over that. But before we go to that, let me go to something that's really glaring. The Omaha Eppley Airfield is one of the largest, or has the potential to be one of the largest employers for the people that live in that community. But there's not even a reliable route to the airport for the people that need the jobs in that community.
Jeez.
That's how messed up our public transportation is here.
Yeah.
That is one of the largest job providers. It could be for District 2 residents, but a community that is disproportionately affected by lack of car ownership. We don't have a bus that can get them to those jobs at the airport.
Yeah. These lines can be the arteries of a city. If we give them proper investment.
But going back to the streetcar, it is a controversial one. you know, and it is controversial, I believe, only because it doesn't serve the whole city. But with anything that starts off, the idea is gonna exist somewhere, and where that idea is existing now is basically to the front door of Blackstone, to east to the riverfront. I mean, I've heard that there are plans for an expanded route that connects the people of this city more than it does the tourists and the Mutual of Omaha, new employees that will come. But a streetcar is critical. I mean, to investment along. You know, what you'll see, you know, because streetcar is already coming. So it's, you know,
is it there? Or is it still coming?
It's coming.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, we're already, you know, it would be a dumb decision to try to undo it, because the infrastructure is already being, you know, they already did all they're doing a lot of the sewage, you know, all this infrastructure to be able to make this a reality, you know, viable. Because had they just laid the tracks, they would have to go back and address the infrastructure issues. So it's already happening. Money has already been allocated. It's on its way. But how do we make sure that this streetcar route is expanded so that the broader community can benefit from it?
Yeah.
That's the question that I have.
No, I was going to say the whole I remember reading a deep dive about this streetcar, and the way it was explained to me, it's the reason why there was a whole spat is like the route made no sense. Yeah. It would go down like the fronts of these buildings and things, and there were some like backroom deals, and people got like, you know, some, what's the
preferential treatment?
Not that, like if you like give somebody a tip or like a heads up of something, and you know, people were buying these buildings where the streetcar would be because where these tracks lay and where the streetcar stops skyrockets your property value.
Oh yeah.
And so that was the whole thing. Like it was just like a way for people to maximize, you know, whatever profits they could from this opportunity. And it wasn't, people thought it wasn't really, the route didn't make sense. Like, why would you have a streetcar along this building other than, hey, let's try to make our property values go up higher? So
well, I don't think Mutual of Omaha would. I think Mutual of Omaha did a lot of the bidding on that, but you know, a streetcar, like you said, can bring a lot of investment to a neighborhood, and everything along that street, the values of those properties are going to go skyrocket. But then there's also going to be a lot of development around it, and that's nice. So maybe when it expands to West Omaha, to further west, I don't think it will, but certainly south and north, hopefully it has the same impact. Yeah. You know, because transportation, I'm in favor of any other mode of transportation that is just that we can add to, you know.
But those bus routes, need some common sense rethinking, and you could really make those things flourish. So.
Yeah, I just want to make our transportation work for the people in the communities that need them, because transportation options like these are safety nets for our family, and that's what our families need, is more safety nets, so that in the worst case possible, if things get really bad, they can at least count on the government, to be there for them.
Sure. A good route into a community can be an economic boon. Yeah, for sure. So.
And just a safety net, because if you lose your car, guess what? You can have my car. I'm going to take the bus. I'm going to take the streetcar. I'm going to take every other transportation option that there is.
Cars are expensive. If I could rely on public transit here, I'd think about getting down to one car, and
I'd probably save $700-800 a month. You know, and that in a neighborhood that is discriminated against by the insurance companies.
Yeah.
Because if you live in North Omaha in any of those zip codes, your premiums are higher than any other zip code in the state.
Yeah.
And even in Lincoln, if you live in a bad neighborhood in Lincoln, your insurance is higher.
So if it's all right, I'd like to actually rewind a little bit. You know, after high school, you said the difference between now and your first run is a life experience. Can you just tell us about what life challenges were, career challenges, that sort of thing?
Yeah,
you said you had your heart broken.
I had a dream job, that I thought I would love, Omaha police officer.
Yeah.
I resigned because it wasn't for me.
Sure.
And more officers need to have the courage to be honest and bow out.
What year was that you resigned?
Well, I joined the police department in 2021, And just over a year, I resigned. And
Why did you join?
well, because when growing up, I was so fascinated with police officers. I used to I was obsessed with watching Cops. I used to watch Alaska State Troopers. It was just seemed like a fun job.
Yeah.
But when I actually became a police officer, it was more than that.
Yeah.
There was a whole historical piece to it. There was all these other things that went into being a police officer. And I have nothing but respect for a lot of the officers that work in the police department. And, you know, but it just wasn't for me. And that's one example, you know, of life happen. You know, you join a career that you thought you would love and enjoy. You thought you could change the world.
Yeah.
It was a tough decision, and it's something that I still have I still sometimes think about. Wow, I gave away everything that I thought I would love, and my heart was really in it. But you know, that's. But another example is I've been in a relationship before. You know,
that's the
when
difference.
when I was first running, I didn't know what the hell love was. Well, maybe from my mom and grandma and that kind of love, but it impacts your worldview in terms of relationships. You know, all that kind of stuff. I missed a bill or two. You know, I've had a letter sent to me saying, "Hey, please pay this, otherwise we're going to come after you." You know, it's just so much of life has happened to me.
Yeah.
I've been in car accidents. I haven't broken any bones yet. I hope I don't. But.
So you joined the force in 2021.
Yeah.
That was a year after the George Floyd protests.
Yeah, that was a
right?
year after all the civil unrest and when Black Lives Matter like reignited.
Yes.
So,
James Scurlock.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think you bring an interesting perspective because you know the difficulties of what police have to go through, but you also know what the difficulties are that Black and brown communities have with police officers. So, I mean, did they have any kind of like de-escalation training? Did you ever go through anything like that?
Well, here's the thing. You know, de-escalation is such a you know, interesting word because de-escalation can mean tasing somebody and getting them in cuffs so that they don't continue to be a threat to us or themselves or the public. You know, de-escalation, you know, I think what people think about de-escalation, they think about it at this one-way thing of like, oh, if the police is here and there's a protester there, the police shouldn't be trying to, you know, move a protester or like shoot tear gas or, you know, that kind of stuff. Or like if you're dealing with a mentally, you know, someone who has a mental disposition,
mental health crisis.
Yeah, crisis. De-escalation. Well, guess what? You shouldn't have the police there.
Yeah. Well, we're trying to pair mental health professionals with our cops, but a lot of money, you know.
But here's the thing: you want to de-escalate.
Yeah.
So you're going to tell me you're going to bring a police. You know, this is a challenging thing with law enforcement. It's like it's such a hot buzz like word, like de-escalate. Being a cop, your view would change because of the nature of law enforcement. You will have to use force. If you don't want to use force, then you shouldn't be a cop. But de-escalation, you're right. De-escalation is an important word, but sometimes when we just use words, the meaning can go away. You know, it can get away from us. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the fact is like in a lot of instances, you know, we ask for de-escalation, but the thing we should have never asked for was the police to deal with that situation in the first place.
Yeah.
You know,
there are a number of police forces in Utah that really leaned into de-escalation training in the sense that it's nonviolent, bringing the heat down.
Yeah.
And they've been very successful in that. And I've just always wondered, but never really looked into it. Like, do our police forces here do something like that? So,
you know, I will tell you that, you know, we did go through de-escalation training and you know, if it's training that is routine and it happens regularly, then it can be effective. But, you know, if you just have one training once a year about de-escalation, you know, it's easy to forget that you need to de-escalate.
Sure.
There are officers that escalate, you know, that have that type A personality of, I'm going to come in here and make them listen to me. That, you know, those officers need all the de-escalation training in the world, or maybe they don't need their job.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
because,
I think it's kind of underrated. Like, hey, if you can lower the heat in a situation that's pretty hot, like,
yeah, what do they
that's
say?
amazing.
It's like, what do you get? Honey would beat you. what is it? The saying, it's like, if you're
Man with the hammer, everything's an
no, it's like if you win people over by being sweet, essentially.
More flies with honey.
Yeah,
sort of
something
thing.
like that. Yeah.
But
Yeah, expression. It's like,
Yeah.
and there were moments that I took advantage of that, and I was like, great. I'm so happy that, because this situation could have been completely different.
yeah,
People want to be treated with dignity and respect.
yeah, for sure.
People will fight and die over their own dignity, if nothing else, and all they have is dignity. That people will fight like hell to have to keep their dignity.
So then, when you left the police force, what'd you go to next?
Well, after I left police department, I focused on growing my business, of flipping houses and managing rental properties and so forth. But then after a while, I went back and worked for a Western Douglas County agency in Valley, Nebraska. And that place had a lot of problems. I mean, the chief of police got fired because he pulled someone over in Washington County with his cruiser outside of his jurisdiction.
Oh.
And it was just a whole debacle. So they went through a whole restructuring process, and they pretty much got rid of every single person there, including me.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've experienced a lot of what not to do.
Wait, so you went back into law enforcement?
I did, yes.
Okay.
And I was part-time. I did a lot of off-duty. I wasn't out on the street as a uniform patrol like full-time initially, but then eventually that department needed help with staffing because, like I said, there was a lot of restructuring, and I went there and worked full-time, but it's a town of 3,000 people.
Yeah.
Nothing like working down in Omaha.
Wow.
That'd be a good perspective for city councilor to have, though.
But yeah, because honestly, I enjoyed it. It just felt like a community that people I knew and respected and whatnot. But it's two different worlds.
Well, when we talked about that was after the time and the de-escalation training with all the cases and things, and there's just been a huge mistrust between law enforcement and the residents, specifically North Omaha. When I was doing some research, I found about the Vivian Strong case in 1969, where that kind of created a huge rift of distrust between the residents of North Omaha and the police department. And how do you propose bridging that gap? How do you continue? How do you build trust again after?
It's such a challenging topic because in so many ways my heart has become it's kind of bittersweet, because that's not really the job of the police department is not to do community engagement. That is not their job. It's not their job. How can you have the police on one hand enforcing the law and based on the facts and in the law, and then have them and then in the next moment you have them out playing basketball with the community, call it Operation Nets. That's great. Operation Nets is great. But you're telling me putting basketball hoops all over North Omaha is going to fix the police and community relationship?
So how do we go about doing that? I mean, more so of the sense of just people don't trust the police.
Making sure that when the police do wrong, not standing up and having that police officer's back and having the community's back.
Accountability.
Yeah.
Accountability. It's like when the community sees accountability and when the community sees that things are fair, I think that's the way we restore it. Because if we can't keep doing those certain things that people find concerning, but then trying to be visible, do Operation Nets, all these different things. I saw a really interesting post. It's not that I'm against the police, but what I'm saying is we need people in the community engaging young people in that way. We don't need that's not the job of the police. First off, Omaha police is so short-staffed right now.
Are they?
Oh my God, unbelievably, they are.
What's the issue?
They are short-staffed.
They're just not being paid enough, or
no? They're being paid enough. It's like 70-some thousand out of the gate. But here's the thing: it's just nationwide. Departments are experiencing issues with retaining and recruiting. In Omaha, the solution that we have is by paying officers more and more to retain the brightest and the best. That's Omaha's approach. But the fact of the matter is that the community like the police are very short staffed. They are.
Mm.
It's call to call to call. Then when I was with Omaha police, call to call to call to call. There's no closure on the call. You can go to a homicide, and the next call can be a car accident. You can go from a homicide to a cutting in progress. You can go from a cutting in progress to a domestic in progress. It's just it, and
Chaos.
there's no true time for community engagement.
Yeah.
There is no true time for true community engagement because you're just going call to call. And those photos you see of things happening with like Operation Nets and that, those are officers or uniform patrol. They're dedicated to a beat, or not a beat, because they do have assignments for that, but they're dedicated to a district, and they work out of a precinct, and they are available to play and maybe take that photo, but that's not their permanent designation. And it's cool. It's great. Maybe they'll recruit some officers out of that interaction.
Do you think they have a shortage problem because of the negative perceptions that cops have gotten in the last several years?
Well, there's a lot. It was the aftermath of those the protests that you talked about. There's all sorts of issues. Any job that you have to worry about your life in, that's not a job that a lot of people want. That's just reality,
Yeah, you touched on something that really does resonate with me. It's like we give police officers a lot of responsibilities that don't really make any sense, and that's something I've always felt like we have a problem here. I mean, having them try to police a mental health crisis situation they're not even mental health professionals.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a huge burden on them. And if we could just reevaluate what their responsibilities are supposed to be.
Yeah.
I
mean, the co-responders are nice. The thing that's interesting about the police department, we have in every precinct in Omaha, people who are routine callers who have some sort of mental health disposition, and they call all the time for police services. I've had the opportunity to have sergeants and just upper command in general who are like, well, don't send those officers to the house because we know it's a person who has who's challenged mental health wise, and we're not saying the officers because we're scared what the officers will do. It's more about it's just a waste of officers' time. And so I like to see more of that, more policies that empower sergeants and upper command to say, well, we're not going to that call.
Okay.
But the way the law is basically now is if a 911 call is made, you can't refute. You can't.
What about investing in like mental health?
Yeah.
Like locally, is there?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we will be having a dedicated mental health facility. I believe that it's being built just west, probably about, it's in West Omaha, just before 90th on Dodge. There's that whole mental health facility that's being built across the street from the Children's Hospital.
Okay.
But we need more mental health hospitals.
Yeah.
Omaha does not do a good job at meeting the mental and physical health needs of its population of people.
Yeah.
A 15-minute drive from North Omaha will put you in a new America, and that's unacceptable. The distance between North Omaha, anywhere in North Omaha, and Millard, for instance, is measured by more than just miles. It's literally the difference between your life expectancy, job opportunities, educational opportunities, and whether or not you live in a food desert. And that shouldn't be the reality in Omaha. Or certainly, that should not be the reality or the case in any city in America. We're the wealthiest country in the history of the world, and we can't even guarantee those things.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be more preventative services to kind of, alleviate those kind of things. And I remember hearing somebody say, like, why do people commit crimes? Like, what do these things stem from? And a lot of it too is like just from poverty, like, not having things and feeling the need to go out and do things, or not having preventative measures to keep you from going down the wrong track or things. And as far as like mental health and like police responding to it, I feel like I've seen so many videos of, someone's having a mental health crisis and a police officer comes up on the scene and their mind first goes to, this person's under the influence of something. Yeah. It must be drugs. It must be alcohol. It must be something that's causing this person to act out like this. And, there have been a lot of instances where force is used, and someone loses their life. And it was something that was unnecessary in that moment. So that's something that I've always been interested in, how people continue to build trust between that. Because like you said, the perception of wanting cops to go out and play basketball with people might not be the best course of action to get to that. But just accountability.
It just feels sort of cliche.
But I feel like a lot of people feel like there's no accountability for cops.
Well,
I
mean, it's because of the nature of the job. It is such a challenging job. Like, okay, so here's law enforcement, right? Mm-hmm. And then there are people in the activist space, and I'm not knocking them, but they approach law enforcement under that historical context of like, we need to restore this and that. But law enforcement serves a whole nother purpose too. Mm. We need law enforcement services, because there are real victims of crimes.
Sure.
There's child sexual assaults. There's all sorts of crimes. There are really bad people in this world. And that's one thing being a cop taught me. I'm a little jaded now because some of the things I've dealt with were just unbelievably evil.
Yeah.
And we need the police to do that and take care of those types of jobs. But we do need to deal with this piece of it. Mm-hmm. And that is the history of abuse and racism and just all the evils that have come in the past from that people's lived experiences.
Could it also be like getting the right people in? Because you talked about like type A cops who get like a rush off of being in an authoritative like position. I mean, like, I guess.
Well, I had a state trooper tell me, I love North Omaha. I love North Omaha because I love to hunt. That's what he told me.
See, that's what I'm talking about. So, like, how do you go about, like, weeding people out like that in the selection process?
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, that's important. But we can't say you got to be better at firing people because the power structure is so it's just unbelievably powerful. So then how do you in any job where the chief can fire you and you can get your job back, that's how powerful law enforcement institutions are.
Yeah. Well, I remember when they were trying to redo the budget, and I think this was maybe in 2020, 2021, around that time, and obviously in the heat of everything that was going on. And I remember they were trying to like change. You had activists advocating for like reallocation of funds within the budget, because the police department gets a huge, like OPD gets a huge cut of the city's
they're most
budget.
of the budget.
Yeah.
Like over $250 million, something like that.
So, I mean, like, I remember Chief Schmarter, like, saying, like, oh, if you cut our funding, don't call me when you need help or don't call us for this or that. But it's also just like, and Mayor Stothert was saying the last time this budget was redone, like, well, crime is at a low, but, we still got to stay on top of it. So we need to increase the budget. So to the point where it's just,
yeah, go ahead.
To the point where it's just like, at what point does this piece of the pie go to preventative measures instead of just fully response? And I'm not expecting you to answer that question, but it's just, it's a lot.
The reality is that you got, and you can be a one man, or you can go in there as a single council member. It's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's not going to happen. You're not going to defund the Omaha Police Department to the extent that people want, But I will say this. Any significant cut to the budget is going to hurt Black and brown communities. Period. Only reason I say that is because I've seen it firsthand of how even just by us even being short staffed, how they had to restructure. They literally had to take people off of Criminal Investigations Bureau and reassign them to the streets. Mm-hmm. So all those specialty investigation positions that deal with like homicides, that deal with fraud, that deal with all these special, like these, like, outside of the day-to-day report call that go into reports that need to have follow-up, all those positions, a lot of those officers have been, many of them will get reassigned to the street. Mm. So like, I get like, but in the meantime, we need something to maintain. If there is a crime, we need officers to be able to respond to those calls. If there is a homicide, like a shooting, we need officers to be able to respond. Because right now, sometimes there's calls holding citywide for priority calls. There are like no cars available citywide.
How many officers are on the
So if
force
someone's
right
getting
now?
the shit beat out of them by their husband, a domestic in progress, officers that are tied up on other calls, if as long as they'll break away from them and expedite to a call, like, priority, like lights and sirens. But there's a lot of instances where, and the city might not like me saying this, where there's no cars available citywide. They literally broadcast it. There are no cars available citywide. There's this call holding, this call holding. If you're available, please switch to this channel. It's a whole process behind the scenes.
How many cops are on the force?
The authorization force of Omaha Police is 1,000. I think they're short by a couple hundred.
So you're saying there's a time where there's like all 1,000 cops are like out on the. Well, I guess it changes.
No, they're
by
not
who's on
all.
shift,
No,
yeah.
listen. So
Yeah.
the authorization force is how many officers we can have in terms of like Omaha police officers, not based on what they do in their roles, but just the authorization force. That's how many officers we can have.
So on the street.
Not on the street.
But what I'm saying, so on the street, there's just like a few hundred then at a time?
Yeah, because, not even that.
Wow.
It's not even a few hundred. No.
Look at Tommy's face.
No, some of these, that's the thing. They're not a few hundred, because you have to think about, when we think about police, we think about Uniform Patrol Bureau. Those are the guys that take your 911 calls. But when we talk about, even if we had 1,000 strong, our numbers will look good on the street. But here's the thing. That doesn't mean that there's 100 officers in any given day on the street. There's probably about 40 to 50 to 60.
You're kidding.
No.
Whoa.
No, you're not serious.
That
I'm
is an
serious.
amazing piece of information.
Because there's different shifts. There's different.
I mean, I could get that. Okay, so what is it, like an 8-hour shift?
Yeah, but
Okay.
but normally they have two different shifts. So like sometimes they come in there, but no, they're at any given moment there's probably about not even 70 officers on the street.
What's the population of Omaha? Like
400 something.
400 and some.
Omaha
close to
proper.
1 million, but metropolitan area 1 million, close to 1 million.
Yeah.
But
and
here's the thing.
40 to 60.
Oh yeah.
That's crazy.
And some of those guys are running skeleton crews. There's for a whole precinct for all of South Omaha, because they have different. So they have A, B, and C shift.
Mm-hmm.
But B shift might have two different shifts because they want to make sure there's constant coverage. Every shift has more than one. Every crew, A, B, C, they have more than one shift because they need to make sure there's overlap.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there are not more than 100 officers on the street. It's never been that case.
That is an amazing piece of information.
Yeah.
There are cops out there. There are cops out there that are. You wouldn't believe it. There's cops out. There's some crews that are running 6 officers dealing with an entire precinct, all of South Omaha by themselves.
Man, that's making me wonder about what's going on here in Lincoln now.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
That isn't it. I've never heard that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm telling you. So when we talk about defunding the police, it just because their budget is that big, there's a lot of technology. Obviously, the helicopter, all these different.
They have horses,
to maintain a
yeah.
police department, it costs a lot of money. But what I'm saying is the reality on the street, the day to day of the uniform patrol guys that are taking those calls, some of them are running skeleton crews because they're so short.
So why don't they talk about that? So when they came up with defunding the police, which is
It's a bad word for what they meant.
It's a bad word for what they meant. Like, hey, can't we reallocate funds to preventative services instead of, it's a mouthful.
I think we just need to allocate funds to those services. We need to make it a priority of ours to allocate funds to those
From
services.
where?
We have money. Look at all this money, this investment that's going into Omaha. We're spending millions and millions of dollars on all these. We have money. The city has money. The city is making a lot of money.
Okay, so then let's talk
It's
about.
just about what is a priority of the city and the mayor and the administration and the council members, like I said. But I'm telling you, the reality is, as an officer, we've literally sometimes you have to play catch up on calls.
So why don't they talk about that?
I don't know.
Could it be like we don't want people to know that it's actually we want to
think-
maintain
I
a
think it's
forceful
crazy.
presence? Like we want people to know that we're out here, even though we're not really out here.
Oh,
If I was the mayor,
you'll be so if you get Omaha police, they're not even. Their hands are so tied. If you pull a car over during a prime time, you're gonna get hung by your crew. They're gonna be like, you're stupid. Why would you pull a car over? We got calls holding. There's no time for enforcement activity even. Most of the enforcement traffic wise will come from the Omaha Police Traffic Unit because they're dedicated to that kind of that work. But outside of that, these uniformed officers that are working on the streets, they are, holy crap.
You need to get elected.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It's not that it's just a reality. It's about how do you approach these situations. Sure, we can have people that say, I want to defund the police, but what the hell does that mean?
Yeah, I know.
Where are we going to get with that?
The worst.
I want to talk about things that are actionable. And if you're not going to get away with defunding the Omaha Police Department.
I mean,
it's just not going to happen to the extent that people talk about and certain activists talk about. We got to navigate this we have to be strategic about this to get what we want. If we voted like we want it to, then we can get what we want, how we want it. But
I mean, that was a big problem for the presidential election is you had a lot of people who were very passionate, but they don't show up to vote.
Exactly.
You know, but no, that's a very interesting piece of information.
That is wild.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I guess I've just always had the perception that,
they're everywhere, right?
Yeah, they're everywhere.
No, hell no. No way.
Like, oh, let me slow down. I'm going I'm going 5 over the speed limit.
More often than not, if you're driving past an Omaha police officer and that cruiser number is not 800 series numbers, like 800 and above, like 800, because that's traffic unit. Everything else, every other cruiser, if they're driving past you, if they're two back to back driving somewhere, they're not going to pull you over. You could probably go 60 miles an hour past them, 80 miles an hour past them, and they won't stop you.
That's why Omaha traffic is so crazy.
Because they're going to a call. Yeah.
Well, obviously you want to kind of try to fix this, right? You want to.
Well,
awareness is like.
Well, yeah, because
that's crazy.
I believe that that's why I'm so focused on like entrepreneurship and wealth creation is because if people have money in their pockets, they don't have to worry about getting pulled over for expired tags. They don't have to get pulled over, for whatever, because they can't pay for this or that.
Sure.
Because it's all a part of that, because if you got expired tags, the cops pull you over. Oh, they smell weed. Guess what? We're going to search your whole car because now we got probable cause. Now we found a gun. So it just keeps, it all has to do with money. It's like money, money, money. People need money in their pockets because when you got money in your pockets, you can control where you live.
Yeah.
You can control
Huge opportunity.
if you can pay for your tags on your car so you don't get pulled over. I mean, everything. But yes, that's the reality with the OPD right now. It's like they're so short-staffed that if someone breaks in your house, officers might be delayed because they're on another call and there's no other car to take your call.
So what is the mask most? I'm just curious. Like, what are the majority of the calls surrounding?
Well,
is that just kind of just a hard?
Well,
we got a lot of calls
in terms of service
or?
calls. Collectively, the Omaha Police Department takes around 2 million calls every year annually. Mm-hmm. But a lot of these calls, they range, man. It's just
like disputes, domestic stuff.
Everything,
going on. Yeah.
Domestics, everything.
Domestics are the most dangerous.
I mean, we go to people's house for when they're deceased. We deal with that. I mean, I've dealt with people that have been deceased and they're on a couch for over a week. I mean, you see everything. I've dealt with the 8-year-old that was beaten to death by his non-biological mom, and maternal father was in jail. She beat the kid to death because he wouldn't clean up the toys. She put him in the back of the trunk, and his 2 brothers and sisters were in the front seat the whole time. And she dropped the 2 kids off to daycare, worked a full shift at Burger King on 114th and Dodge, with the kids still in the back seat. After work, she takes them to the 24th and Cumming to Little Creighton, CHI. And
wow.
He has rigor mortis. He has lividity. He's stiff as a board. And she says, someone was babysitting him and brought him to me like this. But science tells, science is about facts. And the facts is that this child had been dead all day. And I sat down with the 2-year-old. Those are...
Dude, I cannot believe that.
Well, that's why I've always, I know that they don't have a great perception in the community, but I've always felt for cops because that right there, they have to deal with so much. And
the type of stuff you got to deal with too.
Well, that's what it's so much trauma.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally was eating McDonald's. Eating hot dogs at Miller Park on my first day on the street with Roger Osika.
Yeah.
He was my FTO. And the very next call, 45-year-old guy deceased at at his house in Minnelusa, right around the corner from Miller Park. 45-year-old. I just get all this trauma from this family. I don't know who they are. Imagine that, a job where you completely step into someo's life
At the worst
Yeah.
moment.
at the worst moment.
Yeah.
I've literally had someone like, it's on and on. I've had suicides. I had a Hispanic guy who killed himself by hanging himself over over his bathroom door.
Yeah.
And the way he built courage up was by drinking a bunch of Bud Lights. And when I walked in his front door, on the table were a bunch of Bud Light cans empty, and he was on the door hanging. I mean, it's just so much.
These are
It's
really
just so
tough
much.
conversations to have, and I'm glad you're having them.
Well, yeah.
Because like, if people could understand the stress they're under, they'd support probably more mental health services
Yeah.
for the cops themselves. You know.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the cops are the cops need a lot in that sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Difficult job.
Not
it
to
is.
compare it
But that
to-
doesn't mean that we allow a free pass for the injustice and the mistakes that are being done.
For sure. Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely, it is a really tough job, and it's different when you're an officer. It's just different.
People say the same thing about journalism sometimes, like, something happens, car accident, someone
Yeah.
dies, family's on the scene, you got to go ask questions too, I mean, different different situations and different perspectives, but yeah.
I just couldn't do it.
I understand. It's an incredibly insightful discussion right there.
Yeah, it takes a special kind of person too, like to be able to kind of like turn off your emotions in that kind of situation, I mean,
and maybe that was why I didn't stick around too long, because I put too much of my emotion in it. I remember going to a house and this guy had literally just dropped dead on his back. He was laying literally in his bedroom floor, completely naked after getting out of the shower. And I walk in, and how do you deal with that? Guess what? The way you deal with it is by saying, okay, what kind of meds was he on? Was he adherent to his medication? When did this happen? It's just all these questions you're asking someone right as her husband died and the kids are in the living room. It's.
Well, I'm really
Yeah.
I'm really glad I heard that, because it is
Yeah.
a whole new level.
yeah, that's a different perception now. Like,
What's your tattoo right here?
This tattoo is it says mom, but I have a tattoo. I have a zodiac, and then I have Lady Justice on my left arm.
what's your zodiac sign?
Leo.
Huh.
Yeah.
Leo. But I don't really believe in all that astrology, but
It's fine.
It's kind of.
I mean, I don't either, but I mean, like, well, people say like, oh, cancers are really emotional, and I'm just like,
You ever date a hippie
Well,
girl?
no.
Just imagine how limiting that is when you're like, oh, he's a Leo, so I ain't messing with that.
Right,
I've
like,
heard people say that.
All right.
yeah,
Mercury
I'd
in
be like,
retrograde.
okay, like, hey, that's how I pick. I pick. I'm
right.
like, oh,
Well, it's kind of amazing you're willing to have these really tough conversations, because I think that just talking about them will let people give them a perspective,
you went from tattoos to vaccine.
Sorry,
Yeah, I
I
know.
just got that. I'm sorry,
Well,
that
it's
discussion
just-
was tough, man.
I mean, because you're it's just, I mean, whatever. I mean, you're dealing with hypervigilance, where you're.
I'd imagine they're on edge a lot.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
Well,
But that's the job that you sign up for, right?
so maybe a little lighter. Like, what's your favorite thing about District 2? Food? Any kind of restaurants you want to get? Yeah.
Well, the favorite thing about District 2 is that I like about District 2 is, the potential that we have.
yeah.
I mean, everywhere else in the city, it seems like there's development and all that. And although it's not happening to the extent that I like in North Omaha and many in the community, like, we have potential to do some really cool things in District 2.
Mhm.
It's not, there's a lot of vacant lots. There's a lot of opportunity for a lot of cool stuff to happen. But we got to make sure it's the community that benefits from whatever happens there. For instance, Nebraskans overwhelmingly pass medical marijuana. A community that has historically been impacted disproportionately by the war on drugs. A lot of black people were locked up after the war on drugs, and our community certainly was impacted by it. And so for anyone who has a marijuana conviction, they should have a priority pass for owning a dispensary.
Yeah, I think New York City did that. Or
Yeah.
New York State, maybe.
I mean, come on, because we can't, after all these years of targeting black people, really,
Yeah.
and locking them up because of weed. I'm sorry, weed. No, seriously, weed.
Yeah.
Weed, really.
Yeah.
So now that it's legal, all these white people that voted for legalizing weed because it's cool now. We don't need them to have the first pass.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to prioritize people in that community. Because imagine if I want all the drug dealers. Well, I don't care who gets mad at this. I want all the weed dealers in North Omaha or dealing weed under the table to get in the growth mindset.
Regulation.
Do a LLC. Get in line for these dispensaries so you can open up a fucking dispensary.
Yeah.
No more.
Yeah, and you don't have to.
Yeah.
It was such a stark thing that when Colorado and Washington legalized marijuana, all of these dispensary businesses would open up, owned by mostly white people.
White corporations.
And then there were still black and brown people in jail for weed.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, imagine the resources that siphon to keep somebody in jail.
I mean, just how backwards that is.
Yeah.
You lock all these people up for weed. There's many of them still serving sentences unless we have a progressive governor that wants to forgive everybody who got a weed charge. But imagine being the governor of Nebraska. You sign this in the law, but you have people on the books locked up for weed.
Right.
I mean, weed.
Huge disconnect.
It's unbelievable.
One more story about Best Buy. I just met so many people like when I worked there. One of the coolest people was Hippie Sabotage. I don't know if you ever heard of them.
Not familiar with it.
So they're like
they're
a group. Okay, so there was that one song by Tove Lo that they remixed that blew up. So like apparently they were famous, and like they came in and they asked if we want to go to. Did you go to that show with me? Yeah, they were like, hey, we'll put you on the list. Like if you want to come to the show at the Bourbon. I was like, why not? So we go and all that stuff, but that's not what I'm talking about. So I met these people from Colorado, and this was kind of around the time where marijuana was just legalized in Colorado recreationally, and medically, and medicinally, and all of that.
Yeah.
And these people were talking about how it's expensive to live in Colorado or whatever because of all that type of stuff. And they were like, but we met this one lady who opened up a bakery, this older lady. She opens up, a fun bakery, and she was like, yeah, she was able to pay off all her kids' student loans, all their debts and everything, and bought a house. Like she made like over $800,000 in a year.
Yeah, and that's
so she went and got her LLC.
That economic opportunity.
Well, yeah, and that's what I'm committed to. I mean,
she got that.
I want to create the conditions where a lot of our black families can make a whole lot of money in a short amount of time. Mm-hmm. That's how we're going to fix North Omaha. We ain't going to fix it by any particular nonprofit. Mm-hmm. First off, I love nonprofits. They do a lot of good work, but unless they have written into their mission statement, we want to rid ourselves of existence, I don't really like them,
Yeah, and I had that kind of in my questions here when I was like researching and doing all this stuff too. Like,
there should be no reason why any one nonprofit leader is making over $200,000 doing nonprofit work.
Yeah.
It's unacceptable.
Yeah. Why do you think, okay, so after the 1969 riots, on 24th Street, that black-owned business hub right there, like, why do you think it's taken so long of just not, like, revitalizing that?
Well, first off, a lot, I one time asked a really ignorant question when I was running for the first time, and it was to bring the council at Creighton. It was in a sort of a community space, and I said, well, how do you reconcile the fact that black people burnt down all of 24th Street? Shouldn't it be, isn't it our fault? Basically, that's the kind of the question. When anyone asks that question, they're basically saying, well, black people did it. Why? That's their fault. In fact, all those businesses were owned by Jewish people. They were not black businesses. That's why they were targeted. They were targeted because they were Jewish owned and they were white, whatever. And they burnt them down because that was their way of protesting. You killed a black girl, 14 years old, you shoot her in the back of the head. What do you expect the community? You got Will Brown that was lynched the way he was. Mm-hmm. People are tired of that shit.
Yeah. You just keep it clean.
Yeah, well,
people, be passionate.
Well, here's the thing. People are tired of all that. And that manifests and it culminates in something even bigger and that's what we got. It's about what was done to us more than what we did to anybody else.
What was it? Malcolm X. What was the quote? He said, "We're going to pay them in the capital that they understand. The violent people. We're going to pay it back." And it's just like, if anybody has any justification, man, I totally get it. But
yeah, but another thing, a lot of those buildings are owned by a lot of black people, but a lot of those buildings are owned by a lot of white people still that don't even live in the community, that live out of the community, and they're just waiting for that moment when it's right.
Yeah.
Wait for that moment when it's right. They're holding on, and we gotta make sure that if they're just we gotta pass some sort of ordinance that says you can't just hold on to these properties. If you're just gonna hold on to them and just allow them to sit here boarded up and vacant, we're gonna assess some fees or something. I mean, something has to be done to stimulate that economy and that investment, and we got to make sure that it's not just driven by nonprofit investment.
Yeah,
we need to make sure that the sorts of investments that North Omaha receives are driven by the free market. The capitalism and the free market has given a leg up to so many people. I mean, Omaha is known for a lot of things, but one thing it's known for is Warren Buffett. It's known for all the rich people he created from his conglomerate. If it can work for anybody else, the answer to our biggest problems, I believe, is the free market and capitalism, allowing people to make money, to create something, to add value to the world, not just consume. Collectively, black people, we're in terms of our spending power, we could be number 8th in terms of GDP of a country. Something like $1.2 trillion is our collective spending power. I mean, we got to create the environment for that money to come in. We can't just say, well, $1.2 trillion collectively, we have that power. What does that mean?
Yeah.
We have to be able to have a product or a service or something that people can come in and buy.
Yeah.
And we
getting people economic freedom could probably solve a lot of problems.
Oh yeah, because when in another policy, a targeted policy that we'll implement in the first year is we're going to create a digital marketplace where small emerging businesses, big corporations that are located in Omaha, that's the prerequisite. You have to be a big corporation located in Omaha, and then it will be the city of Omaha. And what we'll do is these small emerging businesses will be able to receive basically non-contracts, like under 25,000, and we'll encourage the corporation and we'll encourage the city to purchase from small emerging things, people that are companies that are designated as small emerging businesses.
Yeah.
Because here's the power in that. When we bombed Japan, I'm not endorsing it. I'm just saying, when we bombed Japan to restore their economy, what we did was we built factories all over Japan, and what was being made in those factories what we would eventually purchase from the Japanese, and we were able to bring their economy. That's the power of the government spending.
Yeah.
We create, and Japan is doing really well financially, economically, and has a lot to do with what we did for the Japanese.
Yeah, investment.
Yeah, investment.
Important investments.
And that's what's so beautiful about this ordinance idea is because if there's a small emerging business, and particularly a black one that that's what I particularly care about. We need to make sure, for instance, if they sell toilet paper, if they're in the business of selling toilet paper or toothpaste or whatever the hell it is, and they have a bunch of inventory in the warehouse, and the city of Omaha needs toilet paper, as long as it's under $25,000, it's no contract. The city would have to go to that small emerging businesses and buy all that toilet paper for all of its city building offices.
Yeah. Before
it goes to Amazon or from some big,
Right.
If for some reason, so this would be a directive, this would be a policy through an ordinance that will go through to all the city department heads, the planning department, the police department, all these city, departments that the mayor can,
Right.
it would require them to buy local.
Yeah.
For anything.
Yeah, I understand.
through this marketplace. Think about all that money that would drive, it would put millions and millions of dollars in our economy, and it would help, with North Omaha in terms of small businesses and creating opportunities. But the thing is, it's going to be challenging because in this world of DIY, and we're really in the middle of it. How do we navigate that? How do we get this policy passed when it's going to have to be like race neutral, where it's not about specific race, but North Omaha, I really want this policy to benefit North Omaha. So that's going to be a challenge of getting that.
Yeah. Economic support would do a lot of good for them.
Oh yeah, because just like how we did with the Japanese, I want the people of North Omaha getting super rich off of.
I'd vote for you.
Getting super rich off of
economic prosperity.
Yeah, and one big driver of that is government spending.
Yeah, bolster competition. That definitely would help.
Yeah, and when we invest in small businesses in town, and when they grow and they scale, they create the opportunities that we need in the community.
Yeah.
So that's critical. It's like everyone else wants to talk about all these other things, but we got to talk about how we're actually going to do the damn thing.
Yeah.
And this is how we're going to do it. And this is realistic. This is what we can do in the first year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who doesn't love that? Imagine if all those city council members, if I have this on the table and I say to the word gets out that all of them voted against this ordinance that would drive small business growth in town, they would get so many people would be upset.
Bully pulpit. That's but So my thing here is, I've seen some people get elected to city council. I was very excited about. But it seems like
we were just talking about that earlier.
A few weeks in, it seems like they've already lost the connection with the community, and they're just all off.
A sellout, basically.
I mean, I understand that there's certain incentives that drive.
Well, that's not going to work in North Omaha.
Well, yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's a unique enough district where your incentives can really see you do wonderful things.
Well, here's the thing. I met with the donor once. I sat right in front of him, and I told him, I said, look, I'm the only small business owner in this race. I made a good amount of money. And I do. I'm comfortable. I beat to my. What do you call it? I beat to the sound of my own drum, or I moved to the
march to the beat of your own drum.
March to the beat of my own drum, and I think he took offense to that.
Donors, man.
Well, I think he took offense because I basically said I got my own money.
Oh,
I'm not obligated to follow anyone's direction.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be the champion for the Democrats or the Republicans. I'm going to be a champion for the people in that community.
District 2, yeah.
That's it. That's who I'm going to be a champion. But I don't owe my allegiance to anybody.
Well, I mean, it said at the beginning of this conversation, you said that people are thinking about future careers, and that's like a lot of city councilors thinking.
I mean, no one else in this race is thinking about the next 10 to 15 years. Automation and AI is at our front door. We have these robots that are moving like us.
Oh yeah.
And they're doing pretty damn good for themselves right now, those robots. Like you see Elon Musk roll them out. But imagine where our jobs will be in the next 10 years in North Omaha. A lot of the community rely on the manufacturing jobs that doesn't have a bachelor's degree requirement or anything. And that's my next point, by the way. I'll go back to that. But in the next 10 to 15 years, when automation really picks up, and you have machines that move like you as a human being, we're already seeing McDonald's roll out, get rid of their fry cook position. They're automating that because it is the least desirable job in McDonald's, and it's the most challenging job for McDonald's managers to fill. So guess what? They're bringing an arm in to do it, and I agree with that. We don't need someone working 40 hours a week frying food for fast food people when maybe they shouldn't be eating it. They should go, cook healthy food at home first off. But beyond that, it's not a desirable job to sit there and cook and fry people's food for 40 hours a week and get paid nothing.
Yeah. I worked at the Golden Arches.
But one sec. I want to make sure that community is in a position to, when those jobs get automated, that they have the credentials so they can be the technicians servicing those machines.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I think about things.
Yeah, I don't think there's any stopping automation, but I think it should be heavily taxed because I was in Norfolk and I was in the Walmart. Could not see any people. Everything was serve yourself, and just so little people actually working there, and it's just like that's not going to be good for us in the future. So tax that.
Yeah.
high taxes on automation.
Well, a lot of retailers are seeing a trend against the automation of the POS systems because there's a lot of theft, believe it or not. But you're right. There's nobody checking anybody out anymore.
I also think about just like, what kind of job opportunities are there going to be in the future? The more things become automated, more artificial intelligence takes over. What are people going to be doing?
Well, they better figure it out. I mean, because, I went to college for the humanities and I love it. I have a history and English, whatever. But guess what? That's not going to give me a job.
Yeah.
I don't want to say black people shouldn't go to college for humanities and writing and all that. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying don't go to college for that. Go to college for the tech stuff. Go to college where you have the tools to build AI.
I don't know. I was a computer science student, and Mehdi, you remember that? Oh my gosh!
I get it, but look how our economy's changed. We went from agricultural based economy, where before that we were hunters gatherers, and then we experienced this record. I mean, now we're in the. Before that, after that, we got this industrial economy, the industrial revolution, and now we're in this information technology, information economy. And guess what's next?
What?
It's going to be something completely different. I don't know what they're going to call it, but it ain't going to be information economy anymore. Our economy is continually on that path of specialization.
Yeah.
Even China's too good for us now. China's like, I don't want to make your stuff anymore.
Yeah, they offshored
my brain
everything
was
to
just
Vietnam.
Never wired for like that kind of stuff.
But we're evolving. Even China is to a point where they're like, we're too good for your factories. We're becoming more specialized.
Their middle class has really been built up for the last several decades, and now you're seeing the manufacturing go to like South Vietnam and Southeast Asia.
If we don't get ahead of it if we don't get ahead of it now, because we should have started yesterday on this, North Omaha is going to be like Detroit in terms of in Detroit they relied all on the automobile industry. Yeah. They didn't diversify their economy. And in North Omaha, we have to get that population of people ready for the economy of the future. And if they think things are bad now, things are going to get a lot worse in the next 10 to 15 years. Mm-hmm. And that's why strong leadership is important. Yeah. Because you think people are priced out now, it's hard to find a good paying job now. Imagine what that's going to look like in the next 10 to 15 years. Mm. And that's why I'm going to go to my point about the bachelor's degree requirement. Mm-hmm. We're gonna get rid of all the bachelor's degree requirements for entry level city jobs. Not the more advanced ones, but the entry level, we gotta get rid of them.
Yeah.
That's what Harris said she was gonna do if she got elected.
And it's not about lowering the standard. It's not lowering the standard. No one's making an argument that we're lowering the standard for our police officers. Mm-hmm. They're making $76,000 out of the gate without a bachelor's degree. And sure, they go through an academy process for 26 weeks, but guess what? Most jobs require on-the-job training, just like the Omaha Police Department does. Mm. We don't need a bachelor's degree for entry-level jobs. That's a barrier to working-class people. These are good government jobs that have health care, that have a pension plan, that have good pay, and those are jobs that we can give to working-class people. It's super important when we talk about creating opportunities, what that looks like. Government can be an important player in creating those opportunities. And by opening this up, there's so many families in North Omaha who could have opportunity to get a good job.
Yeah, very hopeful. Hopeful message for the future.
Yeah, that currently locks them out. Because I get it. For the kids that say, well, I went to a bachelor's, I got a bachelor's, so that means I should, that's not fair that they're doing that. Well, guess what? I'm sorry, but maybe you shouldn't got your bachelor's degree. Because even now, employers aren't looking for a bachelor's degree. And even if they are, they're looking for someone that can do the fucking job. Do the job.
Yeah. I think a lot of it, too, is like accessibility to go to college. You know what I mean? Like, what it costs to get a degree now was not what it used to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You used to be able to pay for college like on a part-time job and get by and be able to go into the workforce with no debt. But now it's like you got people,
We-
30, 40, $50,000 in debt for.
We have to stop pushing these degrees down our family's throat, and we got to stop telling poor people that college is the only way for you to have some sort of life that's worth anything. Because even with a college degree, there are some poor kids that want to do greater than that. They want to lift their whole family out of poverty, and a college degree ain't going to do that. What's going to do that is starting a business.
Yeah.
And doing a good business and making a lot of money. Because no matter how successful I get, if I can't bring my family with me, and the people that are living in the trenches, then it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. College degree is not life changing. It might be a moment of like, oh, you're the first in the family to graduate, but that doesn't mean shit.
Yeah, it doesn't mean
It doesn't mean shit if you're not making money, and you got to work 3 jobs, and you're checking out at Target.
You were kind of tense in the beginning. You really loosened up.
Yeah.
Well, it's just because
Yeah, man.
Well, I'm just being honest.
I was the
No,
first
I can
college
see your
grad.
passion, yeah.
But here's the
I'm
thing.
sitting here thinking like,
And
wow,
I-
that's me. I was the first college grad. I worked 3 jobs.
well, in May, I'll be the first college graduate in my family, but
Oh, you're in school right now?
yeah.
Wow.
Well, yeah, I'm in
Jeez.
school. But here's the thing. I graduate in May, and I get to welcome my class, but I have to take like one more summer class, whatever, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But, I'm just happy I made it this far because throughout my time in college, I've thought about dropping out because my whole time in college, I've struggled.
It's about the journey, man.
Well, the journey's beautiful, but it'd be a lot more beautiful if we stopped telling people that they should waste 4 years of their life in college.
Sometimes it is a waste.
Because guess what? It is sometimes a waste. More often than not, it is. But here's the thing. Telling a poor kid to go get a college degree and that's going to be what changes his life is unacceptable. I was there for history and English. I love it. But I never went to college thinking that was going to be the thing that unlocks me to the next level, that breaks that, that gives me the opportunity that I want. Because the opportunities I need and want are far greater than what a degree can get me or whatever, a 9 to 5. Because I got a family that I love and care about. I have a lot of family members who I want to get out of the situation that they're in. And the way we do that is by, doing something incredible, remarkable.
Unless you want to be like a doctor, go to school for that.
Well, yeah, cool. Yeah.
Go to school for
Yeah,
that.
specializing,
Yeah.
those specialty jobs, nursing, all that. We should. Okay,
Yeah.
great. But what North Omaha needs is something so much bigger than a degree. We need people innovating and creating. And a degree isn't going to get you that. A degree can't teach you how to create and add value to the world. It doesn't.
So I think I caught something there. You're going to school,
Yeah.
you're running a business, and you're running for city council.
Yeah. Well, school, I've taken the course load down a little bit. That's what happens when you have to live in a world of where you have to survive, and you don't want to.
Yeah.
When you want to survive,
You can't take a break.
yeah, you
No.
can't take a break.
Trying to convince my
That's exactly what I did. You
older
can't take a
family
break.
members
Yeah.
that it's not as easy it used to be. And I don't know if easy is the right word, but it's just like,
Well, it's true. It ain't
The
easy.
simplicity is not there anymore.
So-
And it's also a thing too. My family were immigrants here, right?
Yeah.
So they always said go to school, get an education, things like that. And when I tried to explain to my mom, this is how much does this cost? Oh, it's no big deal. We'll figure it out. Meaning
Yeah.
you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
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 But it's just even just people here. I used to work for a student. I used to working with student loans. And, you'd have people call in and be like, oh my gosh, I guess I didn't realize, this is the first time we're going through this with my, oldest kid, and college is not what it used to be and the cost wasn't what it was. And they're like, you mean to tell me their student loan payments out of college is going to be $500-600 a month?
well, I mean, so it's really hard talking to my elders. I say, listen, millennials are working longer hours than your generation. They're the most educated in history so far.
Yeah.
Working more than one job.
And they're making less money, and our opportunities are just not what they used to be. And so now Gen Z is the first generation in history that are more skeptical of, work hard and you get the American dream, go get a college degree and you'll make it. And it's just it makes sense. And it's so hard to convince elder generations it's
Yeah,
not the
because
same.
they paid 2 cents for butter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah,
course.
you could peg it to inflation, but it's good that somebody is running for office and may be in office who understands that it's just not the way it used to be.
Exactly, and that's the key here. Is like, and even in the conversations about the problem people in North Omaha in terms of like the age bracket, younger people. Everybody's blaming the young kids, the Kia boys still in Kias. You know, all these problems, the shootings,
the Kia boys.
Yeah, because they steal Kias and they notoriously drive around and they like make videos and they drive ridiculous, like reckless.
Wow.
And they're packed in the car. They're driving their head out of the window. Yeah, it's a thing. It's like a social media thing.
For content?
And if they had...
For whatever they're doing it for. But what I'm saying is, we can't elect Ben Gray again. We can't elect things of the past if we want to talk about fixing these challenges that we have in front of us. 77 years old to, I'm 26. 77, 26, that's a big difference.
Yeah.
I mean,
give the young people a shot.
We can't even get someone in there that's 35 or 40. We got to get all these old heads out of there. We got to get them out of there. It doesn't mean we can't respect them and value their wisdom that they can share.
And their contributions that they've made. Yeah.
But I can tell you even this, and to the church people, I'm sorry, the church ain't as powerful as it used to be. The church ain't going to be our biggest, they can't figure out our solutions. For all those candidates that come in, the white candidates, to be exact, that come in and want to hit up every black church, all the black pastors, and think that they're going to be their big, that's going to get our community out to vote, they're mistaken. Ain't no pastor in an oversized suit walking up down the street to a young black kid that's deep in the hood, doing the, living that day to day, that struggle. What you think you think that kid's gonna care about what this guy has to say to them? No. So, and I love the churches. They're so important, but even they're out of touch.
It's a changing world. Yeah, it's different. And get those kids economic opportunity, and maybe they're not stealing Kias.
Yeah. Yeah. So, or if their families had some economic base, maybe they can buy their kids that Kia that they want.
This is what I said earlier. When somebody was like, brought up the question of like, where does crime come from? Right? It comes from economic disparities. It's from being poor. Like you have these Kia boys probably coming from terrible economic backgrounds and feel like they got to go steal Kias and ride around town with their heads out the window.
Well, first off, they're so easy to steal because, Japanese, is it a Japanese car?
It might be Korean. I can't remember.
Korean. Some of those cars are just horrible. And they have really bad. No one's stealing cars in Japan, or doing joy rides and robbing people and doing all that.
It's very interesting culture for sure.
But
I mean, young people, new ideas, that sort of thing. We just they need to give us a shot. A lot of people play a lot of lip service about empowering younger generations, and then when it comes our turn to, okay, we'll try, and they're like, no.
Well, because they want to be cute, and they want to say, well, the kids are the future. Okay, if they're alive, they're not the future, they're the present. They're literally alive.
Yeah. Invest in them now. Let them
Don't tell me I'm the future. I'm 26.
Yeah.
I don't want to have, these guys.
You're Gen Z, right?
Yeah, but, these old people that say to me, "Well, wait your turn. You're so young."
Yeah, tell us that all the time.
Whatever.
When people are just
waiting.
like, have you had somebody say, "Why city council? Why don't you just go do more volunteer work, do more of this,
get more experience,
and then work your way up and do a term or two and do this?" Like,
because I don't want to be midway in my life and have to deal with all the shit you guys did, and that I have to undo now. I want to get involved now and have a seat at the table, so that when important decisions are being made, I'm adding value to those decisions.
Yeah. So why city council, not the legislature?
You could do a lot of good at city council.
Well, state legislature is nice.
You have a bigger impact on the local level.
For me, it isn't about any one particular elected office. Mm-hmm. Some people I know some people in the world, in Nebraska, who have went from city council, school board, to the state legislature, and now they ran for Congress. Tony Vargas. I'm not knocking him. I don't know where his heart is. I honestly don't. I've met him. I've interacted with him. I think he still remembers me from when I'm 8, and so he says hi, and it's nothing more than that. But I'm 26. But here's the thing. I'm 26 now, and I have some life, and I have some, I have words, and I have ideas, And I'm not the high school, schooler Maurice anymore. And, it's really important that we get young people in there. We don't need anyone who has permanent friends or permanent enemies.
Yeah, I think it's
Like
about
I
new
said,
perspective. Yeah,
I just got permanent issues.
yeah.
Permanent issues.
Well, like, you're a very knowledgeable person. I mean,
Yeah.
you went through my entire call sheet, and I wasn't even the one who was prompting you. I
Well,
don't know.
well, you know,
You're tired and you want to see
I'm
change.
just tired of all this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just tired of the same. I'm just tired of people coming together, sitting at the table, talking about things that need to get fixed, but there's nothing that comes out of it. I'm tired of someone who gets, another black boy or girl life gets snuffed away from them. I can't even count on my hands how many friends I lost to gun violence. And anyone in any community gathering in that community, you'll get everyone to raise their hand if you ask them that question. So the grief and the trauma is widespread, and we can't continue to lose generations of young black men and women, because we literally have. I follow the Faces of the Stolen on Facebook, and every day there's a post about, a post commemorating this life that was lost, and it's every single day.
The GoFundMes,
Yeah.
the
GoFundMes,
villages,
needing to bury people, and it's just, when I was a police officer, I went to an autopsy on my friend, that I had a class with, William Harnage. He wasn't my friend, but when I say friend, he was a part of my community, and I went to school with him, and it was a double homicide, because the worst thing that we have to deal with is the fact that there's black people killing black people. I mean, there's Tripset. I mean, a lot of these, South Sudanese, who were my friends, for instance, never would their parents have imagined that they would come to this country fleeing where they've come from, and that their kids would grow up to be gang members killing other black kids. I mean, I grew up with many of the, of these people, and it's unbelievable what's happening in our community. And in one instance, there was a double homicide, and there was William Harnage, and this kid had like 5, groupings of 5.56, and just in his heart, that's just, it's unbelievable. These kids were followed, they were targeted, they were murdered in cold blood, and as they were walking into an apartment in Midtown, killed right on the steps.
Yeah.
Well, it's just.
I'm incredibly grateful that you're giving a voice to some of the suffering we never hear about. I've never heard anything like this about Omaha.
Yeah, for sure. Me neither. Yeah.
It's and it's a lot of things I'm passionate about, like suicide. I mean, no one should ever have to be in that situation where they're, because the devil, his goal is his goal in life is to kill, steal, and destroy who we are. That's the goal. And for people who make that decision, that irreversible decision to terminate their life because of their circumstances, and there was a guy that shot himself once with a shotgun on Blondo Street, a house just to the west from 72nd and Blondo. And as I'm on my way there, the dispatcher gives me an update that this guy's out in the backyard with a gun. And then just before I get there, I get another additional update that he shot himself. And as I make my way to the backyard, he has this shotgun laying next to him, and he's deceased. In his stomach, where the entry wound came from, his stomach looked like a fillet piece of steak. And when I went in the house and when I secured the scene and did sort of an initial sweep, I noticed that there were letters that said your house is being foreclosed on. Wow. Your utility bills were going to be your utilities were going to be shut off. And his wife sent him a text message because she was there after she got home from work, and she, in the moment of stress and panic, she didn't really know. But I read her message, and she said that you're a piece of shit. You don't add value. You're not adding any value to this family. This guy was a locksmith. He was a man with a trade. He was somebody that was a small business owner. But he killed himself.
Economic anxiety,
because of financial situation. and there's countless of other people that are going through that. It is a sleeping beast. It is a silent killer, and there's so many people that are ending their life in our communities, and no one talks about it ever. No one. Yeah. It doesn't make the news because it's not newsworthy. There are so many people killing themselves in Omaha, all over the state. People are ending their life, and it's not being talked about enough. And when I was a police officer, just in my short time there, I dealt with over 7 suicides.
Yeah, you know, I know these discussions like these can seem incredibly negative on the surface, but talking about it is the first step. So, I mean, even though it is kind of a negative,
it's okay. Thanks.
It brings you hope. It brings change. Awareness brings change.
Yeah, just, negative is not all bad. When people are sitting in silence and suffering, they have no, the people, if you've ever been in complete, isolation or by yourself, I've been there. I've been in a deep, dark hole. For the people out there that make that decision, they're completely alone.
Yeah.
Completely.
That's a huge problem in the South Sudanese community.
Yeah.
Like suicides. Oh my gosh. We've lost a lot of young South Sudanese people to suicide. And it could be obviously a variety of different things, economic issues, feeling alone, stuff like that, What's interesting too that I've read about, which I need to do more research on, is about like generational trauma and how it's just not like a perception, but it's actually like ingratiated in your DNA, where it's like you're feeling the effects of traumatic events that, your parents or grandparents or whoever went through. So like, the civil wars of Sudan and South Sudan, and, even like the struggles of refugee camps and being displaced and things like that, that was like passed on like genetically to their kids. So you have like this, you're born with like this depression and stuff, and it resurfaces and can be triggered, when people have like mental health breaks or things like that. Yeah.
And a lot of black kids are mean to our African brothers and sisters that come from out of the country who are in our communities. They're so mean. I've seen it. Vicious, absolutely vicious. And it has a lot, and I don't understand it.
Wait, who's mean to who?
Yeah, I've seen black kids in North Omaha at different schools in OPS be so mean to us, our Sudanese kids.
Didn't I tell you about that?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
No, seriously. I've seen it. I have my friends. My clique was the Sudanese kids. I used to on 36 in Kansas. I drove down. I used to hang out with this family named Chol and Pan and all those guys, and they were amazing. And at that time, there was no Sudanese kids shooting other kids.
Yeah.
There was no Sudanese. I've never heard of a Sudanese gang member back then. But in just my lifetime, we've seen it.
Yeah.
And it's really unacceptable because I can't imagine being from your family coming from a different country. Some people have been here for 20, 30 years. So let's not get that mistaken that there's some people that have been here for a very long time. But you're right. I've seen it, and it's horrible that we have African Americans and then we have folks who come from out of the country that there's this attitude of I'm better than you, or you're not deserving of this or that because of who you are or where you come from. I've seen that. It's horrible.
It's amazing stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
Candidates, politicians, they usually don't talk about tough things like this.
Well, it's just,
Yeah.
Or maybe they don't come from this kind of background.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like they come from,
Well, a lot of the Sudanese kids went to Catholic schools because, the Christians wanted to, Christians are always trying to spread Christianity, and it's true. A lot of Sudanese kids went to Catholic schools in Omaha anyways. And yeah, that's where I got, that's where I got my experience.
For sure. Yeah. And I'm glad you shared it. This has been a powerful conversation. I learned some things that got me shook.
Yeah, I learned a lot.
So, no,
I feel like every time we do this and sit down with somebody, we learn so much more.
Yeah.
Like I say, it's about proximity. It's about your lived experiences that informs certain things.
Sure.
And for me, that's why proximity to anything is so important. So when you talk about making a white person less racist, you put proximity in that mix. You put them in the black community. You put them out there. You make them, It's even our white friends that we love that are sort of arrogant, sort of ignorant.
Oh man,
It's
he has
about-
to. He had to.
Sometimes you gotta.
he had to teach me what up and stuck meant, and I was just like,
Oh yeah.
yeah. It's
What,
like.
what were we talking
I mean,
about?
there's still some culture behind that. Still,
we
even though
were
it
we were
can seem
talking about
benign.
something, and I was like, "Nah, it's not going to get better. It's up and stuck." And he's like, "What does that mean?"
No, I'll admit my own ignorance, man. I thought it had something to do with some kind of cosmetic thing.
Yeah.
Like, and I told you that. I'm willing to
I'm just
admit
like,
it.
Yeah.
But
It's
like-
just funny. It's just
Yeah, I mean, like
But
some of
Tommy's
us
gotten a
don't-
lot better since he's been hanging out with me.
Well,
we
that's-
don't-
that's
no,
proximity.
It might be funny, but there's a lot of stuff we don't
proximity.
understand.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
right.
And
No, I
especially
got you.
my elder white family, like they just don't understand that perspective, and they go like, why do they got to be so mad or whatever? And it's just like, yeah, well,
Oh,
let's have a conversation like this.
One funny thing, I was at Baxter Arena and I don't know how I end up in spaces sometimes where I just don't understand how I get there. I was like in this VIP press box, like up, above the crowd at Baxter Arena,
Yeah.
and I was meeting with all these
The Quest Center?
elected. No, at Baxter Arena,
Baxter Arena.
and where UNO is on UNO's campus.
Oh, okay.
It's this
okay,
big
so-
arena, but anyways, I'm sitting here with all these different people, politicians, Mike McDonough, Don Bacon, everybody is there, and everybody and their mom is there. And I go over to the Don Bacon's room, and I'm sitting there because I talk to everybody. I talk to Republicans, Democrat. That's why I learned on Osborne how to talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't understand what I was talking about in North Omaha about redlining. It's just like, oh, really? That's happening? So yes,
They thought that went
proximity is
away.
important.
They passed the civil rights legislation.
like,
Racism went
yeah.
away. It's all gone. It's
We
just
got
like,
racism out in the 80s.
there's still
like, yeah.
debanking. There's still gerrymandering, racial gerrymandering.
Yeah.
I mean, the Supreme Court just had to slap it down last year.
Yeah.
And then the redlining and school district gerrymandering.
Yeah.
It's just like, look at the Atlanta suburbs.
It's
Yeah, it's still there.
Yeah, and we got a lot to talk about, but
Yeah.
it's not a lot, and we can't cover all these things in this short amount of time. It's gonna, but
Yeah, that's what I'm excited
it-
about. So
we're gonna do the work, and we're gonna win,
I believe
and
you.
we're gonna deliver a victory for District 2.
You
Yeah.
talked about a lot of hard things here today, and it's something I've never heard a candidate talk about before.
And you've done
so.
like you've done your research, right? Like some people run because for the vibes or it feels good or things like that. But I mean,
Yeah, you
like,
can't. I'm sorry, you won't win an election. The voters in North Omaha is going to decide this election. And it ain't going to be about who you supported. It's not going to matter that you got 2 senators elected who I respect. It's about more than that. It isn't about installing your friends into political office. Voters can see through that, and what voters are going to resonate with in this election is going to be the message. And our message is fundamentally different than everyone else's message. People don't show up for me at the end of the day. I talk, maybe I'm a handsome guy. People tell me all the time.
Yeah,
but
you're
here's
a
the thing.
model.
Yeah. But here's the thing.
I wasn't gonna go
That's
there.
not what people are going to show up for. There might be some. I might score some wins on that
Like,
at the
ooh.
poll. But here's the thing.
I'm voting for the pretty guy.
Yeah.
I mean, it helped.
Hey,
it helped
I heard
Barack
Kennedy.
Obama.
I heard Kennedy won by how good of a looking guy, and Obama. I don't see how
and
that.
the Kennedy versus Nixon debate.
Yeah, he wore
Yeah.
makeup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People who listened to it thought Nixon won. People who watched it thought Kennedy won.
Yeah.
So
But
it-
that's not why people show up.
Yeah.
Well, I know.
For me.
But hey.
People
It
don't
reminds
care
me
about that.
of when Barack Obama was running,
Uh-huh.
and I think Biden was trying to get in, or maybe he just got out of the way for Hillary in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And Biden got caught on like a hot mic or something, like talking about like, oh, this young black man, he speaks so well and he's so handsome, and it's just like he was kind of. Even though he's saying very positive things, he didn't understand that he was kind of talking down.
Yeah.
When Obama wins the nomination, he's still like, even though Joe Biden kind of stuck his foot in his mouth, he's like, well, Joe Biden knows the Senate,
Yeah,
It's
he
just
put
like-
he was able to be like, you know what, I need
Yeah.
this person. I need this
Yeah.
person to make it happen.
Well, yeah.
There's so many amazing stories from that run. It was such
Yeah.
an amazing time.
Gosh,
And like,
I wish I was older enough
When,
to remember it more in detail.
so Barack Obama won so many nominations or endorsements that nobody ever thought he would get, like Ted Kennedy in the line of the Senate, right? And the reason why he did it was because Bill Clinton was talking to Ted Kennedy about his endorsing Hillary. And he said, Ted, this, a few years ago, this guy would have been getting us our coffee. And Ted was like,
Holy moly.
and then, a few days later, he endorsed Barack Obama because it's just like,
That's crazy. I didn't know the backstory.
oh, it's amazing
good.
stuff.
I have his book. I need to read it. I
Yeah.
mean, like it's
This is
daunting,
why you
it's
read those
task-
memoirs.
No, it was.
It's a lot. I mean, like you see, like there's a lot I gotta get through.
But hey,
a lot of
man,
books here.
I mean, I'm not to get ahead of myself, but your story reminds me a lot of the 2008. Just
well, I'm honored to.
What year? You're quick at math. What year would it be?
What do you mean?
Well, how old was I?
No.
Oh,
when would he be eligible?
35. So you're 26, 9 years from now. So
I'm not running for president.
2036.
2036.
Hey.
2036.
Well,
No, we'll see.
We'll see. This video will be well archived. I'm
No,
sure.
I mean, no. I understand. I get the feeling that you're very focused on now. You're focused on this job. So
Yes.
I mean, hey, we got a lot of politicians who are just thinking about the next.
Well,
one.
yeah, and it's unacceptable. I mean, any politician that you see jump from one office to the next, working their way up, it's not admirable to me. I mean, you got to have an impact, and that's what's important. Once I'm elected, if I have the opportunity to serve, it would be an honor. But by the end of my 4 years, if I don't have any meaningful work done, I don't think it'll be another 4 years.
Yeah, what's the point, right? But yeah, anyways.
We talked about a lot of heavy things.
We did.
A lot of insightful stuff. We really appreciate you coming by. To close it out, I have just like 10 rapid fire questions.
Go ahead.
That are supposed to be fun.
That's fine.
You kept saying it's not about me. It's not about me. But
it
like
is
these,
not.
We gotta know about you.
but these questions are kind of about you.
Well, questions can be about me, but the essence of this campaign is about us, and because when they do good, we do good.
What's your campaign slogan?
The one we need.
Because
But we're changing that.
Because
how?
your name, Jones. Right?
Yeah, but here's the thing. We're changing the one we need because I don't feel right about the one we need. I think that's it's sort of self-serving.
Yeah.
Just, if it came from the community in a sense, like the one we need, then certainly I'd be
So did you think about that originally?
Well, I didn't think about it. It was actually an idea that one of the consultants put together. The one we need. The one is nice. JONES, one. I get that, but the one we need is sort of pretentious.
It does really seem like that.
Yeah.
Comes from that. Consulting class sort of thing. But
it's
amazing that you're able to reflect on it and go, "Hey, this wasn't the right direction. I'm willing to admit it. Let's think about something else."
Here's why I said I'm super involved in the day to day of this campaign. I am a data guy. I'm very involved. In fact, I'm calling people. I'm calling the shots on a lot of things. I'm very involved. Like, they don't maybe like it. In fact, I've been told you need to chill out. You're the candidate. But
depends.
What?
At
the end of the day,
most candidates are the candidate, and they're just the candidate.
Yeah.
So that's how I was able to catch stuff like that. I don't like the one we need.
Yeah, I'm glad you're able to turn that around. It's very thoughtful for your candidate.
Yeah, it's very...
Because I can't say it's not about me, and then I have something in my slogan of the one we need.
I'm the one.
Yeah, because that's what exactly it sounds like.
I don't know. All for one,
so
one
you'll
for
see...
all.
You'll see a better... All that branding is going to... the one we need is going to go bye-bye.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. You ready?
Go ahead.
Favorite spot to grab food in North Omaha?
Darn it, because I know I'm going to lose votes if I tell you this. So I'll tell you a number of favorite spots.
Very good.
Come on, man. This is supposed to be rapid fire. We're submitting on question 5 by now.
He's smart. Let him cook.
Well, that's how attitudes are in North Omaha, and I'm not losing a single vote. So I like a number of places. I love supporting black businesses, and I encourage everyone watching this to go to the following places. I like Jackson's Fairdale Cafe.
Okay.
It's around North 24th Street. It is at the home of the former Black City Hall, Fairdale Cafe. Now it's named Jackson's Fairdale. I also like Big Mama's. It's a very important...
I've always wanted to go there.
Yes,
Big Mama's. I've just never had a chance to.
It is now at the Highlander 75 North building. There is also a burger joint in there that I don't know the name of, but I've had their burgers before, and they're amazing. Those are unfortunately, I do like Eat, Get, and Go, Mo Fish. I mean, it's just so many. I mean, I really don't like eating out anymore because I'm on this strict diet. But, yeah.
You got to get a good shot in a restaurant,
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, number 2. If you could have dinner with any historical figure from Omaha, who would it be?
I like to sit down with Bertha Calloway. She was an important figure in the community. In fact, there was a street renamed after her, but she brought Kwanzaa to Omaha. And recently, I had the opportunity for the first time to participate in the Kwanzaa. And as a black person in the U.S., it's so easy to feel like you don't belong, and we don't have any culture or tradition, but we do. It's about practicing and putting yourself in that. So at Kwanzaa, Bertha Calloway, it's important for a black man to know where he's from and the power that he has and what his potential is. And Kwanzaa allowed me to see that and be in community. Yeah. And it was the very first time this year that I did it. And what else do black people participate in? We got Juneteenth, we got all these things, but it's about tradition. It's not about the white man's tradition. It's about the black tradition, and Kwanzaa is one of those things. So Bertha Calloway, shout out to her for what she did.
What's one song that always gets you in a good mood?
Well, I'm kind of a recluse. I'm sort of interesting person because I don't watch movies and TVs. I don't like do Netflix and chill or whatever the heck people do nowadays. So I'm kind of like
you don't listen to music? Is that what you're trying to say?
We're
cutting that out. We're cutting that out.
I don't like sit down and like vibe off of music.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if you on your way here, did you listen to anything to pump you up? Like,
I did not. It was just complete silence.
Okay, we can't.
What do you listen to when you work out?
Well, I listen to just random music, just anything that plays, and if I like it, I save it. But I guess I'll tell you one of my songs that I like.
Okay.
I really been like, it's kind of a guilty pleasure of mine. It's Lady Gaga.
Those are the best ones, man.
Lady Gaga. And she got this new album called Chromatica. And one time my brother invited me to Chicago to go on this concert because he had some free tickets. And I was like, what the heck am I doing? I was like, what the heck am I doing going to Lady Gaga's concert? I was like, I'm not a Lady Gaga fan. I thought she was always this weird white girl that wore meat dresses at the,
Yeah.
And so... But when I went to that,
steak on her head.
bro, I swear to you, when I went to this concert and I saw Lady Gaga perform, I lost my mind.
Yeah,
she is the best performer in the world.
Beyonce,
production value.
Well, Beyonce. Yeah. Okay, I never saw Beyonce do it in person, so it's different.
I bet it's different. Yeah,
yeah, but
no, it's better.
When I'm sure I tell you, when you watch Chromatica Ball, Lady Gaga, she's badass.
Yeah,
wow.
You heard her song "You and I,"
and then being 5'6", it's like she's 5'6", she's petite.
She's taller than me.
She's a badass.
Hey.
She's confident. She has that star power.
Yeah.
And when you see a celebrity that's like 5'6" in person and they go past you and they look at you.
No offense to the short kings out there.
Yeah. But and then she got up on top of that piano.
Yeah.
And she started talking about this song, I Was Born This Way, and she said, shout out to all you guys who's out there, and you are who you are, but the world starts to hate you. And then she got up and got on that piano and started. I was like,
she said that.
So you heard her song "You and I," right?
Yeah.
In Nebraska.
Okay.
Because apparently she was dating a guy from Omaha, and she would come to Omaha all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, how come I never run into like people? No, I have run into celebrities before, but I'm saying like people like
exactly
at the time. But
let me get lucky enough to date somebody of her caliber, and I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. Tell you what, let me not go down a rabbit hole.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, Teo who?
What?
Who'd you say?
I said let me not go down that rabbit hole.
No, before that.
I didn't say anything.
You said a name.
I didn't hear any Teo.
I heard a name.
I said if I was in that position and I was from Omaha, I was able to date someone of her caliber.
And then you said something after that.
No, pretty much, I'd still be dating her.
Listen, I used to work in quality assurance where I listen to phone calls. All right. I have pretty well trained ears.
So Lady Gaga, and then I like Nicki. I got a little Nicki guilty, pleasure of mine.
Yeah.
She's so feisty. She's so, rah.
Confident women, man.
Yeah. I remember when her song.
And she's the first female that talked about, like, women can do what men are doing because men are just as, like.
Well, I remember when she came out on the scene as like a rapper and stuff like that. And I'm just like, wow, this is like cool. And like her style was different. And her song Starships, I remember that,
Yeah, I just the whole vibe is like Lil Wayne, Nicki, Lil Wayne found
Young
her.
Money.
It's just all that Young Money, everything. All that music is great music. and it's a part of who I am as a person of color. So I love it.
Yeah, Young Money, Cash Money.
Yeah, but I don't like these younger. I don't like the newer music, like the sorts of music that promotes, violence and
Yeah.
non-traditional family values.
What you got next?
Yeah.
Are you a coffee or tea kind of person? Or just water?
I like tea.
Really?
I'm a tea person.
What kind of tea?
Well, some teas get a little fancy,
Mm-hmm.
but I just like my green tea with honey, some honey in it.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
I've received so much advice, but a lot of it I haven't followed. So here's how I answer this. And it's a good answer.
Okay.
So I've learned to submit to authority sometimes. You got to learn to just submit to authority. And authority can be your mom, it can be your dad, it can be your best friends that love you and trying to give you some advice. Follow their advice. Mm-hmm. If I've just followed everyone's advice, not everybody, but the people that were important to getting me where I was at that point in time, just follow their advice. Literally. That's the best advice I can give myself. And that's from lived experiences. Sometimes you just need to submit. Yeah. You need to not think you know everything. And you just need to follow the advice of somebody that's telling you it. Because more often than not, they're telling you the right stuff if they love you.
So best advice is to follow advice.
Well,
yes.
I met a guy once. He said, listen, there is nobody on this planet you can't learn something from. So don't act like you can't listen to somebody and learn something.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's so easy for young people to think that we know everything. It's just listen. Just listen.
Learn from your mistakes. Yeah.
Yeah, because if they're 80 years old and they're telling you a lot of these things that they went through, maybe you won't have to reinvent the wheel.
If you could instantly master any skill, what would it be?
To read somebody's mind. Oh, a realistic skill?
Yeah.
You can't. You can't learn to read someone's mind.
Well, sorry. I thought it was more of like a
not a superpower.
No, my head went to some places too.
I was thinking superpower, but a skill. Mm-hmm. A master of a skill. So I might be good with like doing this politics stuff, but maybe in my personal relationship, I'm not so good at like being empathetic. Like I'm not good at like understanding where someone's coming from. Sometimes to me, it seems like they're complaining.
I heard Leos are like that.
Empathy.
Yeah. Oh, see,
gosh. don't even.
So I don't believe in the zodiacs, but there's some value. There's
mastering empathy. That's a lot more thoughtful than I had. I just thought.
But in my personal relationships, particularly, because when I'm out and I'm talking to other, I'm able to do it. But for some reason, when it's the person that I love and care about and are in the same room with and all that, it just seems like it's easy for me to understand how they feel. I can't do relationships because.
That was a huge
sorry.
jerk.
Yeah, no, it was a jerk. It was, yeah. I can't do relationships right now because they don't understand the assignment I'm on. This assignment is divine. It isn't this isn't a little project. It feels like an assignment to me. Yeah. It literally feels like an assignment. It doesn't
you
feel.
You got to do it.
It wasn't something I woke up and said I'm going to run. I feel like it was it was divine. It was something that that God gave
your purpose. Yeah.
You feel it.
I do feel that in my heart.
I feel like
and
that's
the people in my life that want to be with me in relationships. I'm sorry, I don't like to be cute and lay in bed and cuddle and watch TV.
You go getter.
I like to. I want to have an impact, and so these young people nowadays dating young people is so difficult.
Oh man,
people in my age group because they're so. I mean.
No, I know.
They're so distracted.
I know. Like, I moved into this space when I was 25.
Oh, okay, yeah.
On my 25th birthday, we were painting these walls.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
So
like,
you're motivated. I like that.
Yeah. And like I was telling you earlier, my sister was like, when are you going to, settle down and have kids? I'm like, I got to make $250 million first.
Yeah.
My mom was like, so how long is that going to take you? How far?
Meanwhile, I got a government job. I got hobbies I enjoy.
But what I'm saying is understanding that you have ambitions or career goals and things like that. Not a lot of people get that. Not a lot of people don't understand why do you have to do this and we can't just do this or, not a lot of people see the vision or have the ambition. Some people are just okay with being okay.
I've told candidates in the past that if you don't have your family with you on this, then you should not run. But so if you're in a relationship right now and that person's not, I mean, that could be a huge problem.
I should have taken their advice. I should have talked to, the person I was with before I ran, because
That fell apart.
I've talked to candidates and they're like, I'm doing this. And I'm like, well, how's your wife feel about this? And they were like, well, she's a little, and it's like, you better sit down and talk to them, because this is not going to be good for your relationship.
Well, some people are afraid that what might come of that new path you're on.
Yeah.
It's easy for people to feel left out.
And then they want to drag you down. I heard,
and I'm sure I'm doing this for us.
So, okay, I heard this one time. Somebody told me in this room, when I started doing all the stuff that I'm doing and decided I was going to leave corporate America and stuff, I lost a lot of friends.
Yeah.
I lost so many people that I never thought I was going to lose.
Yes.
And someone told me, when you start doing things that start deviating away from what, everyone else around you is doing, sometimes people don't want to look at the reflection of, we started here, but now this person's here and I'm back here. And they don't have the same drive and ambition to commit. But then when they start seeing you elevate, they cut you out of their life because they don't want to feel like they're looking into a mirror.
Exactly.
Somebody told me that
sometimes when you're going
wow.
up on frequency, sometimes people just can't deal with it, and that's okay. Yeah, that's all right. And I'm okay with that.
Being honest.
I want to go to bed with a clear conscience at night, knowing that whatever I do, it was the best decision for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So. Wow. These are taking longer than I thought. These were supposed to be rapid fire. Wow.
I'm sorry. I have long form answers.
No,
normally,
it's okay. It's okay.
I mean, you're sharing,
you're good.
People want to know. People want
their
politicians to open up and be human. So
exactly.
What's your go-to comfort food?
I like ramen.
Hell yeah.
Well, it started off because I was really poor and I ate a lot of ramen. But now it's I
know those days.
Now it's evolved to all the ramen places.
Okay, you're not talking about instant ramen cup of noodles.
No, that's where it started.
Okay.
Yeah, but now it's
man, we went
to good ramen.
It's good ramen.
Where was that place
It's the bougie ramen.
in West Omaha?
I still got plenty of ramen.
There's a ramen place there. Huh? But in that outlet mall.
Oh, I've never been to that one. I've been to Ika.
Oh my gosh.
My friend owns Ika, and she's a great person.
She be my friend too.
Sarah.
Gosh, we went there when I wasn't feeling good. It was like, we're gonna get you something to warm up your insides. I was sweating. That ramen was that ramen was spicy, but it was so good. I'm just like, okay.
I love ramen.
Nice. What's your comfort food?
Cheesecake. No, corn dogs. Corn dogs.
Really?
Trashy. Yeah.
Trashy. All
I
right.
grew up in a trailer park. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah. Makes sense, right?
I grew up eating corn dogs.
No, corn dogs.
Milk and Oreos.
Oh, that's good too.
Oh God.
Asira en la combo. Sudanese food. Ethiopian food. Oh,
I love all that.
Yeah. Oh, so good.
I love the ethnic food.
Mm-hmm. If you had to pick a movie to represent your life, what would it be? Well, you say you don't even watch movies.
I know.
So
I was like, that's such a...
Yeah.
I could say a documentary. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I honestly...
Okay.
Let me think. Let me think on that movie. Honestly, I'm not a movie guy. You're right.
Okay.
I give that up.
Do you listen to podcasts?
I do listen to podcasts.
Okay. What's your favorite podcast then?
So I like the Oprah Winfrey podcast.
Okay.
And the only reason why I like the Oprah Winfrey podcast is because many of the guests that she brings on, I like to think of it this way. That's the beauty in technology.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these people, let me think. Think of some of her guests. Brene Brown, who wrote that book about courage. It just every person that I've listened to on her podcast are people that I can just take their advice, and it's just on a podcast.
Yeah. Imagine
the world before we had all this technology where you couldn't hear those ideas, or you didn't have access to a book. So I particularly like her podcast because I'm able to listen to the advice of some of the wisest people in the world, and I think that people don't people don't take full advantage of that because they're like, oh, it's a readily available thing, so it doesn't have as much value. But imagine, when I listen to those podcasts, I like to think of myself in a room if they were right across from me talking to me. If they were right in front of me talking to me about whatever it is that I'm taking away from that podcast, I put myself. Because think about it, Deepak Chopra?
Deepak who?
Deepak Chopra, he's like this spiritual leader, and he's like Indian guy.
Mm-mm.
He's anyways, yeah.
Okay, wow.
And I like Pod Save America too.
I need to listen to that more. Dream travel destination.
Oh, I want to go to Italy.
Nice.
I want to visit all the regions in Italy.
Cool. What is the most surprising fact about you that people do not know?
Fact about me.
Mm-hmm.
I guess in so many ways I feel weird about talking about it, but I'm a model. I'm a professional paid model.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a lot of jobs with like JD Sports, so like the JD at Westroads, for instance. Just a bunch of other things. But yeah, I used to have all that up. But you can go forward and find it, but I don't post any of it on my socials because, yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the questions we had for you. Thank you so much for coming, Maurice. Do you have anything to add, or do you want to wrap it up?
I mean, this has been an amazing conversation. I've just never seen a candidate talk about tough things, positive future, that sort of thing. So,
and there's not a lot of local formats to do that.
yeah.
No, so thank you
Yeah.
all for
Yeah.
making this possible.
Yeah.
It's important. And although I drove all the way down to Lincoln, it doesn't matter because we're all a part of this community, and what happens in Omaha affects everything. So here we are.
All right, here we are. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Comment your favorite takes below. Like, share, subscribe to keep the conversation going. And Maurice Jones running for City Council District 2 in Omaha. The primary is April
1st.
April 1st.
And then general is May 15th.
That feels like it's next week.
Oh, it's next week in my mind.
Yeah, that's how
why
you gotta.
So I'm losing my mind every day.
That's how you gotta operate. Next on the Jazari Qual Show. From the heart of Europe, our next guest Ola brings a German perspective to the table.
America first does not necessarily mean that you completely close your borders, stop interacting with everyone else just because it's complicated to start a dialogue, to actually approach other countries, other cultures, to try and understand each other. That can pay off.
Join us as we explore the culture, politics, and stories shaping Germany today on the next episode of Echoes from Abroad.